Chapter 378. The commission reward of 200 ninja coins shows that completing the commission is a little difficult, but the difficulty is not very high. Rog opened the system to check the unspent ninja coins he now has. Before accepting the commission to rescue Banner, his unspent ninja coins was 230. In the process of executing the commission, he spent 100 ninja coins to exchange for Hashiman Tanku and 20 ninja coins to exchange for a branch of the divine tree that is of no use to him, but can impress the collector. So even if he completed the commission to rescue Banner, his unspent ninja coins didn't increase too much. Unspent ninja coins, 410. Taking a look at his unspent ninja coins, Rog closed the system page and left the headquarters building of the new Star Corps with Daisy and Pietro. There is still a week before the mission leaves for the Carey Empire's mother planet, Hala. Although Rog and others are military officers of the mission, they don't need to participate in the specific affairs of the mission. Therefore, this week was their leisure time. When Rog and others left the headquarters building, Centurion Roman Day handed them 4 military-grade communicators that are only used inside the new Star Corps and 4 universal language translators made by the new Star Corps. Until now, Rog is still using the universal language translators he got from the Carey battleship. They are about to represent the new Star Corps to the Carey Empire. Of course, it is not suitable for them to continue to use the translators of the Carey Empire. When Roman Day handed over the communicators and translators, Rog was a little stunned. He didn't expect that the seemingly careless Centurion Roman Day would have such a delicate side. This is a bit beyond his evaluation of Roman Day. Thank you. After receiving the communicators and translators from Roman Day, Rog thanked him and then took Daisy and Pietro directly to the downtown business district. Rog, who has been a nouveau riche in New Star City for a while, has little interest in shopping and enjoying alien food. However, Daisy and Pietro, who have never left the Earth, showed great interest in this. In order to satisfy the different needs of Daisy and Pietro, Rog and Blackie had no choice but to become their temporary guides. Blackie left with the anxious Pietro, while Rog and Daisy wandered aimlessly in the city center. Looking at Daisy, who was walking in front of him and looking around curiously, Rog suddenly remembered that he hadn't paid attention to Daisy's recent situation for a long time. Ever since Daisy had been reunited with her parents, he had hardly seen her. Although they both live in Konoha's headquarters, it's basically either he's not in the headquarters, or Daisy is not in the headquarters. In retrospect, the last time he was alone with Daisy was when Konoha's intelligence agency was just established. At that time, without a commission, he was trying his best to raise Daisy into a qualified warrior. However, at that time, her name was not Daisy, but Sky. When it was almost midnight, Daisy, who had been wandering in New Star City for most of the day, reluctantly returned to the hotel at the request of Rog. Although Natasha and the others have returned to the Earth, the suite they lived in before is still there. So after returning to the hotel, Rog righteously refused Daisy's request to live in his own suite and sent her to the suite where Natasha lived before. After arranging Daisy, he didn't immediately return to his room, but went to the room where Noah lived. Since yesterday, he hasn't gone to Noah, so until now, Noah still doesn't know that Hulk and Natasha have left. Although the rope herbalists cared a lot about their vice leader, Noah, they were already trying their best to find the whereabouts of the flower god Colossus Traiant. But unfortunately, the slave hunters still haven't found anything. The mother planet of the giant statue tree man was not found, but a living giant statue tree man was found. However, the giant statue Traiant happened to be the Traiant Groot that Logue excluded from the list. From now on, you can return to the slave hunters. I have other work to deal with, so I can't continue to take you with me. You're free. After pouring himself a glass of green Xander Star wine, Rog said to Noah in a calm tone. You don't want the giant statue tree man anymore? Noah didn't expect that Rog, who he hadn't seen for 2 days, would suddenly say such a thing. No, you've misunderstood. I just don't need you to continue to follow me, but it doesn't mean that I don't need the giant statue tree man. After returning to the slave hunters, you still have to find a way to find the giant statue tree man. As for the deadline, I'll give you 3 years. Rog thought for a few seconds and gave a deadline that was neither too long nor too short. When you capture a living giant flower god tree man or find their home planet, send a message to this number. I will contact you again when the time comes. After that, Rog took out a metal plate engraved with the spaceship's internal contact code and threw it to Noah. He also gave this spaceship's contact code metal plate to Rocket and Groot before. However, his spaceship crashed after crossing to Sokka Star, so even if Rocket and Groot wanted to contact him, they couldn't do so now. This time, the spaceship's contact code metal plate he gave to Noah was the Golden Jack battleship. This battleship, which originally belonged to the Carey Empire, is now secretly parked in outer space not far from Earth. Although Noah didn't know what Rog was going to do next, he had no reason to refuse Rog's proposal at this time. Although after returning to the slave hunters, he still had to help Rog. But in any case, it was better than his current hostage-cum-driver-cum-bodyguard status. Aren't you afraid that I won't appear again after leaving? The universe is so big, if I want to hide, you may not be able to find me. Before leaving, Noah turned back and asked. Rog didn't speak, raised his left hand and pointed to his neck. Understood. What you want, within 3 years, I'll give it to you. After that, Noah left the room without looking back. Although Rog left the Flying Thor spell on Noah's neck, Noah didn't know the specific function of the spell, let alone how far the spell's sensing range was. With his current strength, as long as Noah left Xander, he wouldn't be able to sense the spell on it. However, Noah didn't know this, and he wasn't worried that Noah would really break the contract and disappear. If Noah was a Lone Ranger, he would add other restraints on Noah before Noah left. But Noah wasn't a Lone Ranger, he was the deputy leader of the rope hunters. As long as the slave hunters were still there, Rog didn't have to worry about Noah breaking the contract and escaping. Chapter 379. A week passed in the blink of an eye. Under the lead of a New Star Corps medic, Rog and the rest arrived at the spaceport near the New Star Corps headquarters building. Although the New Star Corps soldier leading them was a medic, he was not a medic like those on Earth. The soldiers in the New Star Corps were divided into 4 levels. The highest rank was the 4th rank of Centurion, which was Roman Day's rank. The medic was the lowest level, the 1st level of the New Star Corps, a newly graduated Space Academy student. In other words, most of these medic soldiers did not have actual combat experience, and their main daily tasks were some basic administrative work. Only when these medic soldiers successfully upgraded to the 2nd level Millennian or the 3rd level Denarian could they truly enter the battlefield and fight for the New Star Corps and Xander. In a few hours, the New Star Corps diplomatic group would officially depart to the Carey Empire. Therefore, before they depart, Rog and the rest needed to change into the uniform and equipment of the New Star Corps and obtain their temporary authorization card. From a personal aesthetic point of view, Rog did not like the uniform of the New Star Corps. However, in order to complete the mission, he could only wear the dark green uniform. Rog, Daisy, and Pietro's process of changing was quite smooth, they only needed to report their figures. However, Blackie, who was in his human form, was facing unprecedented difficulties. Symbiotes never wore clothes. They could change their form at any time and did not need the so-called clothes. Even if the New Star Corps prepared a uniform of the right size for Blackie, he still could not wear it. The humanoid Blackie only looked similar to a human's torso and limbs, his special life form was not suitable for wearing clothes. As the 2nd level military officer of the diplomatic group, Blackie definitely could not go to the Carey Empire without wearing anything, the New Star Corps could not afford to lose face. In the end, Blackie took the initiative to go to the Carey Empire in the form of a weapon. Although weapons with life were rare, it was still a reasonable existence. Therefore, Blackie, the 2nd level military officer of the diplomatic group, was officially dismissed before the diplomatic group departed. After changing into the uniform of the New Star Corps, Rog looked at himself in the mirror. Short black hair, blood-red eyes, and a language translator device made by the New Star Corps on his right ear. Near the heart, there were 3 rectangular red crests. In the middle of the crests, there was a golden octagon that symbolized the New Star Corps. These 3 qualifications not only represented his status as a 1st-grade military officer in the diplomatic mission, but also his status as a 3rd-grade soldier in the Legion. On the left side of his belt, he wore the northern cold blade that Blackie had transformed into. On the right side of his belt, he wore the level 3 warrior's standard explosive pistol and the army's internal communicator. He was wearing black boots that matched his uniform. After putting on the black leather gloves, Rog left the changing room and took his temporary authorization card from the medic. Not long after, Pietro and Daisy, who had changed into their uniforms, walked out of the changing room and received their authorization cards. From now on, the three of them would be the military officers of the New Star Legion, in charge of protecting the safety of the Legion during their trip to the Kree Empire. Let's go, the commission has officially begun. For this diplomatic mission, the New Star Corps had prepared an Army-level flagship as well as 2 frigates for the diplomatic mission. The frigates would only escort the flagship to the final warp jump point and wait for the flagship to return. Of course, if an accident happened, these 2 frigates would also become the first batch of support for the flagship. In order to avoid provoking the Kree Empire, the flagship of the diplomatic mission would not land on the Kree Empire's mother planet, but would remain in outer space. The only ones that could land on the Kree Empire's mother planet were the 3 civilian-grade spaceships within the flagship. Although there were thousands of soldiers and logisticians on the flagship, the diplomatic mission only had about 200 people. Furthermore, there were about 50 civil servants and administrative personnel who did not have any combat ability. When the diplomatic mission truly landed on the Kree Empire's mother planet, Hala, the only ones who could protect the mission's safety would be Rog and the other 250 soldiers. After knowing the exact number of people in the diplomatic mission, Rog finally understood why the New Star Corps invited him to join the diplomatic mission. 150 combatants, this number seemed to be quite a lot. However, if the Kree Empire really wanted to do something, these combatants would not even be able to put up a decent resistance. Even if the New Star Corps' flagship was in outer space nearby, it would not change the situation. After all, that was the mother planet of the Kree Empire, one of the 3 great empires in the universe. It was the Kree Empire's strongest military base. I hope it will go smoothly and easily complete the mission, otherwise. Rog was quite confident in his own strength, but he still did not dare to underestimate the military strength of the Kree Empire's mother planet. After boarding the flagship, Rog and the other 2 did not pay a visit to the ambassadors of the diplomatic mission. Instead, they went directly to their quarters. They were only members of the diplomatic mission in name. Although they had the status of military officers, they were not part of the New Star Corps. Therefore, things like paying a visit to their superiors had nothing to do with them. As long as nothing unexpected happened, they would be invisible in the diplomatic mission. When everything was ready, the flagship carrying the diplomatic mission lifted off according to the scheduled time. When the flagship entered outer space, Pietro and Daisy, who had never been in space before, excitedly went out to enjoy the scenery. As for Rog, he directly laid on the bed in his quarters and closed his eyes to rest. There was still quite a bit of time between the departure of the flagship and the landing of Hala. During this time, Rog only wanted to enjoy this last bit of leisure time. After flying for a while and jumping through more than 10 jump points, the Kree Empire's mother planet, Hala, finally revealed its true appearance. After a long docking, the Kree Empire approved the request for the flagship to stop in outer space and the diplomatic mission spacecraft to land. The landing process was very smooth, there was not even a slight bump. When Rog walked out of the second spacecraft and followed behind the diplomatic mission, he saw a familiar face in the welcoming team of the Kree Empire. Rog only knew 2 Kree people. One was the manipulator Ronan, and the other was Ronan's nephew Rothschild. Luo Nan was injured by his 8 inner hidden gates more than half a month ago, so the one who appeared in his line of sight now wasn't the Luo Nan he was more familiar with, but Luo Nan's overbearing nephew, Rothschild. How could it be him? Is there no one else in the Kree Empire? To let a playboy become a member of the welcoming team, and a rather important one at that. This arrangement of the Kree Empire made Rog a bit confused. Chapter 380. Rog didn't know if it was his own misperception, but he felt that the peace agreement between Xander and the Carey Empire this time was not normal from the inside out. The Nova Supreme gave him the same feeling, and the Carey Empire gave him the same feeling. But on the surface, it seemed that both sides were indeed looking forward to the signing of the peace agreement. The ambassador of the diplomatic mission was talking enthusiastically with the representative of the Carey Empire, as if they were old friends reuniting after not seeing each other for a long time. Rog didn't care too much about the conversation between the ambassador and the representative of the Carey Empire. His gaze was on Rothschild, who was standing next to the representative of the Carey Empire. Although only half a month had passed, the current Rothschild showed a completely different attitude compared to when he was on soccer. If he hadn't dealt with Rothschild before, Rog would have thought that Rothschild was a rising political star of the Carey Empire just by looking at his current appearance. Although Rog was standing behind the diplomatic mission in a low-key manner, trying to reduce his presence as much as possible. But sometimes, the development of things was completely opposite to one's plan. I didn't expect that after parting on soccer, Mr. Rog would actually join the new Star Corps and accompany the diplomatic mission to the Carey Empire. Last time, I left in a hurry and didn't have time to say goodbye to Mr. Rog. I hope Mr. Rog won't blame me. Rog didn't take the initiative to look for Rothschild, but Rothschild took the initiative to look for him and said in a respectful tone, "What the hell does this guy want? Does he want to take revenge for what happened on soccer?" Rothschild's arrival completely broke Rog's low-key plan, making him suddenly the focus of attention. If it was any other time, Rog wouldn't mind being the focus of others' eyes, but now, it went against his plan. Before Rog could say anything, whispers could be heard all around him. So he's the fourth Hokage Rog who defeated Ronan the Accuser. When did he join the new Star Corps? Why didn't we receive any relevant information? The fourth Hokage who defeated Ronan the Accuser is one of us. He's actually a first-class military officer of the diplomatic mission. I don't remember his name being on the diplomatic missions list. It wasn't only the Carey Empire that was puzzled by Rog's appearance here. Even most of the people in the diplomatic corps were puzzled. Although Log's name was included in the list of members of the diplomatic mission that the new Star Legion submitted to the Kree Empire, it was only the name and identity of a first-grade military officer. Although Rog's name wasn't particularly common, there were still many people with the same name as him, so the Carey Empire wasn't able to discover that he was the fourth Hokage who defeated Luonan. The reason for this was because he didn't want to embarrass the Carey Empire on the surface. Similarly, because it was a secret mission, not many people in the diplomatic mission knew about Rog's identity. Aside from the chief military officer of the diplomatic corps, Centurion Roman Day, only a few people in the diplomatic corps knew. Of course I won't blame you. After all, I wasn't able to visit Sir Ronan in time. I hope Sir Ronan won't blame me. Although he didn't know what Rothschild was planning, since Rothschild took the initiative to come knocking on his door, it wouldn't be right if he didn't return the favor. Rog's tone was full of apology. If it was someone who didn't know the details, they would have mistakenly thought that there was some deep relationship between him and Ronan. However, everyone present knew that the person who caused Luonan to suffer such heavy injuries was none other than the apologetic Log. After hearing Rog's words, the ambassador of the diplomatic corps couldn't help but reveal an indescribable expression. This Rog had the potential to become a politician. As a politician, the most important ability wasn't political ability, but thick skin. Thick skin allowed one to make promises and guarantees that one didn't even believe in without batting an eyelid. Thick skin allowed one to not care about temporary gains and losses. One could advance and retreat with a sense of propriety, slick when dealing with opponents with different political views. Thick skin allowed one to play the role of a politician that the people desired, gaining the brainless support of the people. Uncle is in the city right now. If Mr. Rog is willing to take the time to meet him, I'm sure Uncle will be looking forward to your arrival. Rothschild obviously understood the subtext of Rog's words, but he didn't take it to heart. His tone was just as respectful as before. If I have the time, I will definitely pay him a visit. On the morning of the second day, when the diplomatic mission and the Carey Empire's representatives were about to start the negotiations on the details of the peace treaty, Rothschild personally brought people to the diplomatic mission's residence and invited Log to the residence of the accuser, Ronan. Although this invitation wasn't part of Rog's plan, he was still curious as to what Rothschild and Ronan were planning. After instructing Daisy and Pietro not to leave the diplomatic corps' residence, he brought the Northern Cool Blade and boarded Rothschild's luxurious flying vehicle, heading towards the residence of the accuser Ronan. Mr. Rog, would you like some Azure Stardust? This is one of the top products in the Empire. Only 50 bottles are produced in a year. If we use new star coins to measure, then each bottle of Azure Stardust costs more than 100 million new star coins. Moreover, it's priceless. Sitting across from Rog, Rothschild took out a bottle that emitted a faint blue glow from a small fridge and asked Rog. Since you've said so, then I'll have some. Rog wasn't worried that there would be any problems with this bottle of Azure Stardust. Rothschild and Ronan weren't idiots. They wouldn't do anything to this place. Although Uncle has lost to you twice, he doesn't hate you. Instead, he calls you a rare opponent. Rothschild handed the wine glass to Rog as he spoke. His face didn't show any signs of hypocrisy. Just listen to these words. We've all dealt with each other before. There's no need for pleasantries. Receiving the wine glass from Rothschild, Rog took a sip. Although he wasn't a professional wine taster, the moment the Azure Star entered his mouth, Rog felt a magical sensation that he had never experienced before. It was slightly spicy when it entered his mouth, but this spiciness quickly disappeared. What followed was a strange feeling of all sorts of tastes being activated at the same time. When all sorts of sour, sweet, bitter, spicy, and salty flavors gushed out at the same time, Rog's mind inexplicably imagined stars exploding. Azure Stardust filled the sky, forming a seemingly random scene that contained some sort of mysterious law. Was this thing really wine? Chapter 381. Rog had not been to many extraterrestrial planets. Even if he included Asgard and nothingness, he had only visited 5 or 6 extraterrestrial countries. However, he had drunk quite a lot of alien wine. Whether it was in Asgard, the barrels made from the wreckage of Brunhilde's fleet, the precious spirits that have been stored for thousands of years. Or on nothingness, the strange spirits that are not even known where they are produced. He has drunk a lot of them. However, this wine called Azure Stardust is the first wine that inexplicably made him think of a scene. At this time, he even suspected that what he drank was not wine, but some strange hallucinogen. The taste is really unique. After gathering chakra in his brain and dispelling the strange scene that emerged in his mind, Rog replied to Rothschild. You got rid of the hallucination of Azure Stardust so quickly, you are indeed the 4th Hokage. Seeing Rog almost instantly recover his sobriety, Rothschild said unexpectedly. Then, he quickly found the ambiguity in his words. No, I mean, you can recover your sobriety so quickly. Rothschild quickly explained, but he immediately found that his explanation seemed to make no sense at all. Azure Stardust brings some strange hallucinations, making people see the gorgeous scene of stars exploding and stardust flying. This is also the origin of the name Azure Stardust. This is the unique effect of this wine. The duration of the hallucination varies from person to person. The stronger the person, the shorter the duration of the hallucination. Because he was afraid that Rog would suspect that he did something to the wine, Rothschild quickly explained and drank the Azure Stardust in his glass. Then, his eyes blurred and he leaned back in his chair as if he lost his mind. Is there a need to be so nervous? I just said that the taste of the wine is good. After waiting patiently for 5 or 6 minutes, the absent-minded Rothschild returned to normal and looked at Rog apologetically. I'm really sorry. I didn't inform you of the Azure Stardust's characteristics in advance and caused you to misunderstand. I'm very sorry. Rog frowned slightly as he looked at Rothfeld, who was exuding fear from head to toe. I remember that I didn't mistreat him much on Sokka Planet. How did he become like this? Am I really that frightening? Rothschild noticed the change in Rog's expression. However, Rog's suspicions were replaced by, he's considering how to punish me. This made Rothschild, who was already scared, even more nervous. Looking at Rothschild, who was getting more and more nervous and scared, Rog sighed and said helplessly, It's fine, you don't have to take it to heart. The Rothschild who appeared in front of the diplomatic mission yesterday was so confident, steady, and courteous. However, the current Rothschild gave people the impression that he was timid, weak, and trembling in fear. These two completely different attitudes made Rog wonder if Rothschild had some hidden symptoms of a split personality. Rothschild didn't dare to say a single word for the rest of the time. He was just like an accompanying servant, constantly pouring wine into Rog's empty wine cup. When the aircraft arrived at the residence of the accuser Luo Nan, only a tiny bit of the azure stardust, which was worth 100 million new star coins, remained. Just when Rog thought that Rothschild would continue to maintain this submissive attitude, Rothschild once again displayed a change in attitude. Or rather, it was an enormous change in personality. The aircraft's hatch opened and the light from the outside world poured into the cockpit. Rothschild once again returned to his attitude from yesterday. He was confident, upright, and generous. Under Rothschild's guidance, Rog walked into the residence that was like a small imperial palace. Soon after, he saw the accuser Luo Nan, who he hadn't seen for half a month, in the study of the residence. It was different from the previous two meetings. The current Luo Nan wasn't wearing battle armor, nor was he carrying the all-purpose warhammer with him. Luo Nan, who was wearing loose casual clothes, took the initiative to stand up after seeing Rog's arrival. He walked to the front of Rog. "I really didn't expect to see you on the mother planet. Sit anywhere you like. I also didn't expect to come to Hala." After the servants of the residence prepared drinks and a few exquisite curry snacks, the door of the study was gently closed. Even Rothschild left the study like the servants. "You specifically asked Rothschild to pick me up. It shouldn't be to catch up with me. Just say it. Why are you looking for me?" Having said this, Rog picked up the cup on the table and gently took a sip. Compared to the azure stardust, this drink was clearly several levels lower. The taste it brought wasn't as unique and stimulating as the azure stardust. Generally speaking, this drink tasted a bit like the coffee on Earth. It was slightly bitter with a bit of aroma and sweetness. "Although I don't know why you suddenly became a member of the New Star Corps and why you came to Hala with their diplomatic mission, I hope that you can stop this peace agreement from being signed. No matter what reward the New Star Corps Supreme gives you, I can give you 3 times the reward." Luo Nan didn't speak any superfluous words and spoke directly. 3 times the reward? That sounds pretty good. However, I am a ninja with good professional ethics. I will never betray my employer during the mission. This is a matter of principle. Luo Nan didn't speak any nonsense. Rog also decisively rejected Luo Nan's proposal. The atmosphere in the study suddenly became a bit heavy. "I knew it wouldn't be that easy to bribe you. But I'm guessing that the New Star Corps Supreme's mission to you should be to protect the safety of the diplomatic mission. He also wants to use your existence to add some pressure to the opposition. Am I right?" Luo Nan spoke again after a few dozen seconds of silence. "You're right. First of all, I'm a person who can be bribed easily. For example, my resistance to honey traps is particularly weak. As for the rest, you're right. My mission this time is just to be a bodyguard. Whether or not the peace agreement can be successfully signed has nothing to do with me." Even if Rog didn't say it, Luo Nan could easily guess the contents of the mission. Although Luo Nan wasn't some sort of strategist, he still had basic political intuition. "Honey traps. If you really like these, I can help you arrange them." Luo Nan said this, but he didn't feel that Rog was the type of person who would be tempted by beauty. It was absolutely impossible for a powerful person who obtained great strength through bitter training to be tempted by so-called beauty. Luo Nan was a typical person who obtained strength through bitter training. He wouldn't be tempted by so-called beauty. So in his opinion, Rog, who was a human from Earth, would be the same as him. He would absolutely not be tempted by beauty. Chapter 382. It had to be said that Luo Nan was taking things for granted. For him, women would hinder him from becoming strong. But for Rog, this was not necessarily the case. Sometimes, women could become the main reason why men become strong. Roger remembered that there was such a classic line in a movie he had watched before. "All men who achieve great things do it for women. Men who give up on love do not do anything well." Although this sentence was a bit too absolute, Rog felt that it made a bit of sense. Of course, the current him couldn't openly say to Luo Nan, then arrange a few beautiful Carry girls for me. This wasn't in line with the image of an expert he'd always had. That's not urgent. We can talk about it later. Rog temporarily declined Luo Nan's good intentions of arranging a honey trap for him. Since you've already told me the contents of the mission, then I might as well tell you a secret. Luo Nan looked at Rog with a serious expression and then said slowly, this time, the peace agreement will absolutely not be signed. Really? You're that sure? From yesterday's welcoming party, the Carry Empire did not support the peace agreement 100%, but at least they did enough to maintain their image. And according to Rog's knowledge, Luo Nan, who controlled the accusation group, was not on the Carry Empire's list of negotiators. Luo Nan was indeed very strong. He was one of the most powerful existences in the Carry Empire, and he was also the supreme accuser appointed by the Supreme Wisdom. But Luo Nan only had the accusation group and his direct subordinates in his hands. So in terms of the size of the troops, Luo Nan could not mobilize that many troops. Because while they are discussing the details of the peace agreement, I will personally lead the troops to attack Xander. Although Luo Nan and Luo Gu couldn't be considered friends at all, Luo Nan still spoke of his plan without holding anything back. As long as I lead the troops to attack, the peace agreement will absolutely not be signed. No matter how much the Carry Empire and Xander want to stop the war, they will absolutely not be able to stop the war. Looking at Luo Nan in front of him, Rog experienced for the first time the tyrannical and powerful image of Luo Nan, the accuser, in other people's minds. The current Luo Nan was like an ever-victorious general who had been on the battlefield for many years without a single defeat. He confidently stated the target of his next attack. Well, it's not that I doubt your strength, but in your current state, I don't think you have the strength to take down Xander. Having said this, Rog extended his right hand and pointed at Luo Nan's chest. Half a month ago, Luo Nan, who had just opened 5 gates, was heavily injured by a kick from Li Lianhua in the arena of Sokka Planet. Luo Nan was wearing a special battle armor. Although at the last moment, he had silently retracted some of his strength. However, Li Lianhua was still able to heavily injure Luo Nan in her 5-gate state, causing him to lose his ability to fight on the spot. Although Luo Nan didn't say anything and acted as if nothing had happened, Rog could tell that Luo Nan had yet to fully recover his strength. That doesn't affect my plan. Xander doesn't have a powerhouse like you. Even if I haven't fully recovered from my injuries, there aren't many people in the New Star Legion who can stop me. Luo Nan was still very confident in his own strength. And after fighting with the New Star Legion for so many years, he knew roughly what stage the New Star Legion's strength was at. As long as he was careful and didn't get besieged by many centurions at the same time, he wouldn't be afraid of anyone in the New Star Legion even in his injured state. I don't know what kind of strength the powerhouses in the New Star Legion have, but aren't you afraid that I'll accept Nova Supreme's request and personally go to the battlefield to deal with you? Rog continued to ask. At this point, he basically understood why Luo Nan wanted to see him. Luo Nan didn't want the Carry Empire to sign a peace agreement with Xander, so he planned to take drastic measures to directly destroy the foundation of the peace agreement. If Rog hadn't accepted Nova Supreme's request, Luo Nan might have already led the fleet to the nearby universe of Xander. However, after discovering that Rog's name had appeared in the list of members of the diplomatic mission, Luo Nan planned to postpone his plan for a little while. First, he wanted to ensure that Rog wouldn't side with Xander, then lead the fleet to attack Xander. So, there was the bribe of 3 times the reward just now. You won't accept Nova Supreme's request for a second time. Although I still don't know why you accepted that woman's request, there's one thing I'm sure of. You're not the kind of person who would work for others again and again. Since your mission this time is to protect the diplomatic mission during the peace agreement, then you'll only be a bodyguard once. We haven't met many times, and we haven't known each other for a long time, but I firmly believe that my view of you is correct. You'll only accept one request. Luo Nan said confidently, making Rog wonder if Luo Nan had secretly investigated him. Luo Nan was right, even if the Carry Empire and Xander really went to war, he wouldn't accept another request from Nova Supreme. Apart from those who had gained his approval, everyone else only had one chance to entrust him with them. For the sake of ninja coins, he can work for others. Ninja's job is to work hard. But he wouldn't work for others again and again for ninja coins, unless the client was someone he recognized. I've really underestimated you. I originally thought that someone like you wouldn't have such a meticulous mind. I didn't expect that a rough guy like you would be as thoughtful as those who play politics. Rog said with a smile. This time, Luo Nan did give him some unexpected surprises. Seeing that you're so sincere, I'll give you a definite answer. That's right, after this mission, I'll leave Xander, so you don't need to worry about meeting me on the battlefield. However, according to my rules, a request can only be considered officially ended after I receive the reward. I don't want to know why you're fighting, and I don't care about the war between you. But if you kill my employer before I receive the reward, then I'll pay you back. Then, if I don't receive the reward, I'll definitely kill you. Luo Nan confessed his plan, and Rog certainly didn't mind giving him a warm reminder. He didn't care whether he could receive the reward from Nova Supreme or not. But if Luo Nan's attack caused him to not receive the 200 ninja coins reward from the system, then even if Thanos was protecting Luo Nan, he would definitely kill him. If you dare to block my path to wealth, then I dare to destroy your path to life. Chapter 383. In the small living room of the Diplomatic Corps Hall. We'll probably be able to leave in a few days. If you want to sneak out for a stroll, I can take you out. Rog sat on the sofa in the living room and spoke to Pietro and Daisy, who had nothing to do in front of him. After having a showdown with Luo Nan, he left Luo Nan's mansion and returned to the Diplomatic Corps Hall. Luo Nan didn't need to worry about encountering Rog during the attack on Xander. Rog also didn't need to worry about Luo Nan attacking the Diplomatic Corps during the signing of the peace agreement. Although they didn't reach any agreement on the surface, they both got the results they wanted, the results that satisfied them. As the host, Luo Nan gave Rog a limitless payment card from the First Bank of the Carey Empire when he left the mansion. This limitless payment card was similar to the credit cards on Earth. It was a method of paying first and paying later. Luo Nan gave the card that belonged to him to Luo Gu. The meaning behind this was basically the same as saying, I'll pay for all of your expenses in the Kree Empire. Rog didn't refuse Luo Nan's kindness and happily accepted the card. Can we really go out? With our current identities, it's not suitable for us to show our faces outside, right? Although Pietro and Daisy had never been bodyguards, they were very clear about one thing. As military officers of Xander, it wasn't suitable for them to wander around the Carey Empire. Of course you can't wear your current clothes. But as long as you can disguise yourselves a little and pretend to be tourists wandering around the city, it won't be a problem. The Carey Empire's Hala and Xander were both famous planets in the universe. Although the Carey people were sometimes quite xenophobic and overbearing, there were still many extraterrestrial tourists on Hala. As long as Pietro and Daisy didn't wear the new Star Corps uniform, there wouldn't be too big of a problem. Moreover, it wasn't just Pietro and Daisy who wanted to see the scenery of the Kree Empire. Log was also quite interested. But if we leave, what about the safety of the Diplomatic Corps? After all, we're still on a mission. It's not good to run out like this, right? Although Daisy was a little moved, she was still a little worried. Leave this to me. As soon as he finished speaking, Rog stood up from the sofa and used shadow clone technique in front of Pietro and Daisy. Bang bang. 2 clouds of white smoke appeared out of thin air and quickly dissipated. However, after the smoke dispersed, 2 shadow clones that looked exactly like Rog appeared in front of them. Without waiting for Pietro and Daisy to ask, the 2 shadow clones tacitly displayed ninjutsu. Bang bang. 2 more clouds of white smoke appeared. However, this time, when the smoke dissipated, the 2 shadow clones turned into Pietro and Daisy, who were wearing the uniform of the new Star Corps. Hello, I'm Pietro. Hello, I'm Daisy. Without needing Rog's order, the shadow doppelganger Pete and Daisy appeared in front of the real Pete and Daisy and spoke in the same tone as them. This, looking at the Pietro, who looked exactly like him, and even the voice was the same, Pietro was a little stunned. Pietro knew that Rog was strong and fast, but he never knew that Rog had such a magical ability. The magical scene in front of him caused his brain to shut down for a while. Compared with Pietro, Daisy, who already knew that Rog had the ability to use shadow clone technique, was much calmer. However, when she saw that the Daisy transformed by the shadow clone technique was no different from herself, especially when the figure data was the same, some complicated expressions appeared on her face. "You don't really have a hobby of cross-dressing, do you?" Daisy looked at Rog with a strange look in her eyes. Leaving behind a shadow clone for himself, Rog took Pietro and Daisy, who had changed and disguised themselves a little, and quietly left the diplomatic corps hall. Rog originally planned to take Blackie with him, but after considering Blackie's eye-catching appearance in human form, he decisively gave up the idea. On Xander, Blackie's humanoid form was already eye-catching enough. However, Xander was a relatively tolerant planet, so even if Blackie was a little different, it wouldn't be too big of a problem. However, on Hala, the mother planet of the Carey Empire, Blackie's unique appearance would without a doubt attract the attention of the guards. The Carey Empire was an empire where the people were generally racist. Here, as long as one was not a pure Carey with blue skin, one would more or less encounter some unfair treatment. The difference in skin color was enough to cause unfair treatment. If it was a difference in appearance, it would not be unfair treatment, but more direct discrimination and exclusion. In order to make this trip to the Carey Empire easier, Rog and the other two planned to disguise their skin color as blue, but they soon found a blind spot. Even if they disguised their skin color as blue, they did not know the Carey language and would expose their identity as soon as they spoke. In the end, they did not even think about disguising their appearance. They just changed into Carey Empire-style clothes and quietly left the diplomatic mission hall. Of course, before they left the hall, they changed the translation device they were wearing back to the version made by the Carey Empire, and put on a pair of spectacles as well. In the city, in a small bar of the Carey Empire. After leaving the hall, Rog and the other two strolled outside for a while, then came to this ordinary bar of the Carey Empire. If one wanted to understand the characteristics of a civilization, a place where people from all walks of life gathered like a bar was a good starting point. It was like learning a new language. Swearing was often the easiest to learn. It seems that the bars here are not too different from the ones on Earth, just that the taste of the alcohol is a little strange, and the image of the guests is a little different. Pietro took a sip of the light green beer in his hand and turned to Rog. No matter what kind of civilization it is, the function of a bar or similar place is the same. But did you notice that the bar here has a higher degree of freedom? While speaking, Rog pointed at the two Kree who were fighting not far away and said casually. If it was on Earth, the moment the guests started fighting, the security in the bar would rush over to stop both sides. But here, the two Kree who were either drunk or had a grudge against each other fought for more than 10 minutes, and still, no staff came to stop them. Just when Pietro was about to bet with Rog on which Kree would win in the end, one of the Kree suddenly picked up a beer bottle and broke it with a bang. Then, he aimed the crack of the bottle at the neck of the Kree under him and forcefully stabbed it. The result was no surprise. The crack of the bottle stabbed into the neck of the Kree, and green blood burst out. Although the Kree who was pressed on the ground struggled with all his might, it did not take long for him to die from excessive blood loss. Now, do you still think this is the same as the bars on Earth? Chapter 384. On Xander, people who got into a fight would be sent to prison for serious crimes. On Hala, the home planet of the Carey Empire, people would not be punished even if they killed someone in public in a bar. Of course, Rog was not sure if there would be no punishment at all. However, judging from the winner's attitude and the cheers of the audience, there was a high chance that he would not be punished. When the Kree with a wound on his face raised his right fist proudly, several Kree surrounded him and invited him to their table for a drink. As for the loser who had died from excessive blood loss, he was carried out by the bar staff like garbage. The green blood on the floor was also cleaned up immediately. Will this really not be a problem? The one who died was a Kree, one of their kind. Pietro had a look of disbelief on his face. There shouldn't be a problem. The rule here is that as long as you don't use a gun, you can fight however you want. As for the consequences of losing, they already knew before the battle started. Roger took a sip of the beer that tasted like apple juice and said faintly. "How did you know?" Pietro asked. He remembered that Rog had said that this was his first time on Hala, so how did he know about this rule? "When you tried to strike up a conversation with that Carrie girl and ran back in fear, I asked the bartender here." When Rog pointed out his embarrassing incident, Pietro's expression became a little awkward. "Don't worry, I won't tell Walter. There's nothing wrong with going out to have fun and having a romantic encounter. We're all men." "I understand," Rog continued, trying to ease Pietro's embarrassment. However, he did not expect Pietro's expression to become even worse after hearing what he said. "Sigh, young people nowadays can't be so thin-skinned." Rog sighed, a little angry at Pietro's failure to fight back. Thinking back, before he had transmigrated, he had been an ordinary person and had been called the little white dragon of the waves. As a result, in this world, Pietro, who had extraordinary abilities, was not as good as him before he had transmigrated. Just as Rog was wondering if he should teach Pietro some of the skills he had used to dominate the martial arts world, he saw something unexpected. After arriving at the bar, Pietro and Daisy went to have fun according to their own preferences. Pietro's way of having fun was to hit on the Carrie girls around him. Unfortunately, he was rather timid, and before he could strike up a conversation, he had already backed off. Compared to Pietro, Daisy was bolder and more confident. Of course, Daisy's way of having fun wasn't to flirt with the muscular men around her. Instead, she went straight to the dance floor and swayed her body along with the music. Rog didn't know if Daisy liked to dance or not. However, there was one thing that he knew very well, and that was that the vast majority of young girls wanted to be the center of attention. If it were any other place, these young girls would probably dress themselves up beautifully. In a place like a bar, it was much easier to become the center of attention. As long as your body was good enough, your face was beautiful enough, and you jumped high enough, you could attract most of the attention in the bar. In some cases, the first two conditions could be lowered appropriately. Although Rog wasn't a Carrie, he didn't know much about the aesthetic views of the Carrie people. However, from the looks of the Carrie men gathered around Daisy, she was more in line with the aesthetics of the Carrie men. At this time, although Daisy was dancing high, she still kept enough sober to not let herself become the prey of these Carrie men. At this time, a Carrie man came to Daisy's side with a domineering aura and pushed aside the small characters around him. This domineering Carrie man was none other than the guy who had just won the fight. Because of the distance and the music, Rog couldn't hear what the Carrie man said, but he witnessed the scene of this guy being sent flying. He saw a circle of transparent air shock wave gushing out from Daisy's palm, and the unlucky guy was directly sent flying. Although Daisy was very unhappy with the Carrie man's words, she still controlled her strength and didn't directly kill this guy. Instead, she sent him flying a few meters. The guy who was sent flying crashed into several tables before finally coming to a stop. His whole body was in a very sorry state as he lay between the broken bottles and the fallen tables and chairs. "Trash like you don't deserve it, scram." After sending the Carrie man flying, Daisy still didn't vent her anger and loudly scolded. However, the moment Daisy finished scolding, the music in the bar stopped, and the Carrie people stood up one by one. Not only that, Rog also found that many people, including the bartender and the bar's security, took out their guns. What's going on? Didn't the bar's rules say that guns are not allowed? Are the young people of the Carrie Empire so unethical? Seeing the muzzles of the guns aimed at Daisy, Rog and Pietro looked at each other in confusion. "He is tonight's winner, you shouldn't have attacked him. Put down the weapon in your hand and beg for his forgiveness, otherwise you will not be able to leave tonight. Apologize immediately. Arrogant alien bitch, I will kill you." All kinds of warnings and curses sounded, and Daisy looked around with a puzzled expression. Daisy's superpower made these Carrie people mistakenly think that she used some kind of energy weapon, and her attack on the Carrie man seemed to have violated some kind of rule in the Carrie Empire's bar. "What do we do now?" Pietro looked around and asked in a soft voice. "What else can we do, beat them up?" The Carrie Empire's bars had their own rules, and Rog also had his own rules. Want to bully his companions in front of him with numbers? No way. The threats and curses directed at Daisy continued. At that moment, a palm-sized glass shot out like a bullet and hit the loudest Cree. Bang! The glass shattered, and the residue splashed everywhere. The person who threw the glass was none other than Rog. His actions had successfully attracted everyone's attention. You want to fight? Sure, I'll play with you. As soon as his voice fell, Rog disappeared like a flash of lightning, leaving only a few finger-sized light blue electric currents behind. Lightning release, lightning body blink. At the same time, a flying Thor kunai appeared in Rog's right hand. Chapter 385. The moment Rog disappeared, Pietro, who was standing next to him, also entered a state of extreme speed. Pietro might not have a lot of experience in flirting, but he had a lot of combat experience. Before meeting Rog, Pietro had received some combat training from Hydra. After joining Konoha's intelligence agency, Pietro's combat experience has increased tremendously. Therefore, after Rog used Thunder Blink, Pietro also used his extraordinary ability. Although the Kree men in the bar looked ferocious, none of them were real Kree warriors. To put it simply, the Kree people were just a bunch of low-class hooligans. When Rog and Pietro disappeared one after another, the Kree people quickly realized something. However, it was already too late. Rog's flying Thor kunai and Pietro's fist struck the Kree with lightning speed. The music stopped, and screams rang out in the bar. Under the joint attack of Rog and Pietro, the Kree only lasted for 3 seconds before they fell to the ground one by one, clutching their injured right hand or head in pain. Green blood continuously flowed out of his right hand. Rog had used the flying Thor kunai to cut his tendons. Those who covered their heads or chests had been hit by Pietro's right fist. Although Roger and Pietro did not kill the Kree, under their extreme speed, a casual strike from them was enough to inflict unbearable pain on the Kree, whose strength was not much different from that of a street thug. I don't want to know what **T rules you have here. In front of me, there is only one kind of rule. That is, I have the final say in the rules. Do you understand? Rog said coldly as he squatted in front of the Kree who was sent flying by Daisy. He patted the guy's face with a Thor kunai that was stained with green blood. Understood. The Kree man did not expect to meet a foreigner like Rog who did not follow the rules of the Kree. What shocked him even more was that Rog and the other two, who appeared to be just extraterrestrial tourists, were actually far more powerful than them. It's good that you understand. I hate people who don't follow the rules the most. Since you're the winner tonight, I'll let you pay for tonight's loss. After wiping the Thor kunai on the Kree's collar several times, Rog stood up and put the Thor kunai back into the ninja tool bag behind his belt. Ignoring the wailing Kree on the ground, Rog and the other two left the bar without looking back. The onlookers who didn't threaten or insult Daisy or pull out their guns weren't attacked by Rog and Pietro. As for whether they would tell the police what happened in the bar, Rog and the others didn't care at all. The small incident in the bar didn't affect Rog and the other two's mood for sightseeing. Under the enthusiastic introduction of a Kree taxi driver, they arrived at the bustling business district of the city. Like real extraterrestrial tourists, they began to shop delightfully. Daisy mainly bought expensive jewelry and clothes in the style of the Kree Empire. Roger and Pietro, on the other hand, bought some technological products. They included anti-gravity flying boots, flying backpacks, household energy security barriers, smart home robots, and game consoles produced by the Kree Empire. From these commonly used technological products, it was obvious that there was a huge gap between Earth's technology and Kree's technology. Of course, in addition to these small technological products, Rog also bought flying motorcycles, flying cars, small household spaceships, and so on from the luxury aircraft sales center here. Although the price of these vehicles had a lot of zeros, they were all paid for by Luo Nan anyway, so Rog didn't need to save money for the Supreme Controller. In order to take away these large and small goods, Rog even showed a little of his hand in front of the Kree people, letting them see what a psychic scroll was. Pietro also suggested to buy some legal Kree weapons, but Rog rejected the suggestion. The weapons that could be sold legally were all civilian versions, and their power was innately inferior to military products. And on the Golden Jack, Rog had an entire armory of Kree weapons, enough to equip an army of 1,000 people. With such a pile of weapons, there was no way he would be interested in the weaker civilian weapons. Just as they finished their shopping trip and were enjoying the local delicacies of the Kree Empire in a high-class restaurant, a breaking news story appeared on the huge outdoor screen on the roof of the crossroad. The restaurant's excellent soundproofing completely blocked out the sounds from the street outside, but with the simultaneous translation glasses, they immediately understood the breaking news. The peace mission of Xander has been attacked by an unknown armed force. The police are on their way to the scene. The news footage clearly showed the embassy where the mission resided. Many buildings were set ablaze due to the explosion. The moment they saw the news, Rog and the other two's expressions turned abnormally serious. They didn't expect that the mission would actually be attacked when they snuck out. From the footage, it seemed that the attack on the mission wasn't over yet. After seeing the breaking news, Rog immediately called for the waiter to pay the bill. Then he cast Flying Thor in front of the waiter and brought Daisy and Pietro back to the embassy. "Change your clothes first. I'll go out and see what's going on." As soon as he finished speaking, Rog deactivated the transformation spell and turned back into the military officer wearing the new Star Corp uniform. He also changed the translation device he brought with him to the new Star Corp version. While Pietro and Daisy were changing their clothes, Rog found the shadow clone he left behind and took back the Northern Chill blade. The moment the shadow clone was deactivated, the relevant information appeared in his mind. More than 10 minutes ago, armed forces of unknown origin appeared in the embassy and launched an attack on the members of the mission. Although the incident happened suddenly, the military officers and guards immediately organized a counterattack and stopped the attackers from attacking the members of the mission. The members of the mission who didn't have any combat power were arranged to stay in the innermost safe area of the embassy. Until now, there had been no news of casualties among the members of the mission. This definitely wasn't Ronan's doing. He didn't have the guts to do so. Was it the other rebels, or was it a terrorist organization within the Kree Empire? Rog began to think quickly. Chapter 386. From the current situation, Rog was more inclined to believe that it was the other rebels of the Kree Empire who launched the attack. Although the number of attackers wasn't particularly large, they displayed excellent military quality. Although the terrorist organizations of the Kree Empire could also cultivate experienced fighters, in general, the other rebels were more suspicious. Not long after, Pietro and Daisy, who had changed back into their military uniforms, came to Rog's side, looking around vigilantly. "You two move together. If you encounter an enemy you can't handle, don't force it. Ask for help immediately." After instructing Pietro and Daisy, Rog picked up the Northern Cold Blade and left alone, heading to the other areas that were attacked. At this time, the chief military officer of the diplomatic mission, Roman Day, was leading a team of guards to protect the ambassador's safety and constantly arranging for other guards to contact the outside world. The moment the attack began, all the communication channels near the hall were electronically jammed. Even the secret frequency band used by the New Star Army was filled with noise. It was because of this that this unknown armed force, which didn't have many people, caught the diplomatic mission unprepared and quickly gained the upper hand. Sounds of explosions and the unique sound of blasters could be heard everywhere in the hall. Moving alone, Rog quickly arrived at the target area and set his sights on the suspected commander of the attackers. When Rog was carrying out Jia Ying's request, he had fought with the Kree Empire's soldiers and had a rough understanding of the strength and equipment of the Kree Empire's ordinary soldiers. At this moment, the attackers that appeared in front of him were clearly stronger than the ordinary Kree warriors. Their equipment was also of a higher grade. However, this made no difference to Rog, who was wielding the Northern Cold Blade. To catch bandits, first catch the leader. After determining the commander of the attackers, Rog didn't hesitate and immediately used his ninjutsu. Lightning release, lightning body blink. In an instant, Rog crossed a distance of tens of meters and appeared in front of the commander like a ghost, the pitch-black Northern Cold Blade cutting through his neck like lightning. Before the corpse of the commander fell to the ground, Rog's figure disappeared again. Although the strength of these attackers was far inferior to Rog, their vigilance was not low at all. Rog had just slit the throat of the commander when the other attackers noticed his arrival. They aimed their guns at him and pulled the trigger. It had to be said that the ambushers' reactions were pretty good. However, they had clearly underestimated Rog's strength, or rather, speed. Just as the colorful blaster bullets flew out of the barrel, Rog had already left his original position and killed the second attacker. Lightning body flicker, lightning body flicker. At this time, Rog had transformed into a merciless harvester, reaping the lives of these attackers like the Grim Reaper. 10 seconds later, Rog's figure appeared again, and he forcefully swung the Northern Cold Blade. After wiping the green blood off the Northern Cold Blade, he put the Northern Cold Blade back on the left side of his belt. Ignoring the more than 20 corpses on the ground, Rog walked into the building whose door had been destroyed by artillery shells. Is there anyone alive? If there is, let me know. It was unknown whether the members of the diplomatic mission in the building had taken the initiative to turn off the main power supply, or if the attackers outside had destroyed the wiring in the building. The huge building was now pitch black. After a few seconds, Rog heard a loud voice in the hall. Who are you? Are you a military officer? I'm Rog, a military officer of the diplomatic mission. If you want to meet up with the rest of the group, I can escort you there. Rog had long known that there were many members of the diplomatic mission who were still alive in the building. The reason why he purposely asked after entering the hall was to prevent these guys from shooting at him. A few of us here are injured, and it's not convenient for us to move around. We can still protect ourselves for now. Sir Rog, go protect the ambassador first. The members of the diplomatic mission hiding in the room did not show themselves, and only replied to Rog. Okay. Rog had no intention of wasting time with these unfamiliar diplomatic mission members, and turned to leave. After leaving the building where the power supply was completely turned off, Rog used Chakra's perception and began to sense Roman Day's position. Roman Day was a centurion of the New Star Corps, and his body had the unique New Star energy of the New Star Corps. New Star energy was a special energy generated by the New Star Corps' super life computer, World Mind, and was almost unlimited. The soldiers of the New Star Corps would be allocated different amounts of New Star energy according to their ranks. New Star energy could bestow upon the New Star soldiers super strength and endurance, as well as flight and energy shooting abilities. Super strength and endurance were general enhancements that every New Star soldier possessed. Flight and energy shooting abilities were advanced uses that could only be achieved by 3rd and 4th level centurions. In simpler terms, a New Star soldier was a super soldier that had been enhanced by New Star energy. Centurion Roman Day's New Star energy was the strongest among all the New Star soldiers in the hall, so Rog only needed to find the one with the highest energy intensity. After confirming Centurion Roman Day's position, Rog used the quantum teleportation that he had plundered from the Inhuman Gordon, and directly teleported to Roman Day's vicinity. Just as the splendid aurora-like hemispherical energy barrier appeared, it welcomed the attacks of the diplomatic mission's guards and attackers led by Roman Day. Whether it was Roman Day, the diplomatic mission's guards, or the unidentified attackers, they all treated Rog, who was inside the energy barrier, as the enemy's reinforcements. Various colored bullets and New Star energy rained down on the quantum energy barrier like a storm. Is there a need to welcome me so warmly? Rog cursed in his heart, and just as the energy barrier started to dissipate, he used lightning body blink to teleport. Under the dual attack of the bullets and New Star energy, the quantum energy barrier soundlessly shattered like a bubble, revealing an empty interior. No one? This thought appeared in the minds of Roman Day, the attackers, and the others at the same time. However, in the next second, 3 shurikens drew a beautiful arc in the air and hit the 3 attackers closest to the battlefield like bullets. Uchiha Ryu throw. 3 sharp shurikens made of ordinary metal took the lives of the attackers without any suspense, and the 3 dead bodies fell to the ground. Just as these unknown assailants were trying to find the hidden assailants, shurikens drew large and small arcs in the air one after another, hitting the assailants one after another. Chapter 387. These shurikens were like bullets with an automatic navigation system, accurately hitting the forehead of every attacker. No matter whether these attackers hid behind cover or not, and no matter how these attackers changed their positions, these shurikens were like the kiss of death, kissing their foreheads. The attackers fell to the ground one by one, and the originally noisy environment suddenly became quiet, so quiet that it was a bit strange. As a centurion of the New Star Legion, Roman Day was quite knowledgeable. However, the scene in front of him still caused him to be involuntarily shocked. If these shurikens didn't attack the attackers, but the diplomatic mission, then, Roman Day didn't dare to imagine such a scene. The attackers who were fighting back and forth with the diplomatic mission guards, in the face of this inexplicably and amazingly efficient shuriken attack, only lasted for a minute or so before they all died, with eyes full of unwillingness and doubt. Next time you shoot, make sure it's not your own reinforcements. I don't like the feeling of being shot by my own people. After finishing off all the attackers with the shurikens, Rog walked out from the corner of one of the buildings and said to Roman Day, who was flying in the air and covered in light, "Sorry, I didn't expect it to be you." After hearing Roger's complaint, Roman Day immediately flew to his side and said apologetically, "Sorry, Roger. I've taken care of some of the attackers in other places, the rest are being taken care of by Daisy and Pietro." While using chakra to search for Roman Day, Rog also checked the remaining attackers in the hall. In addition to those he took care of, only a large number of attackers gathered here. As for the scattered attackers in other places, the temporary team formed by Daisy and Pietro was gradually cleaning them up. There were subtle differences between the life energy characteristics of the Xanders and the Kree. It was based on these differences that Rog was able to determine the other attackers in the hall. There were some other Kree service staff in the hall, but on the first day of moving in, these Kree service staff were dismissed by the diplomatic mission. Therefore, during such a sensitive period, there was only one type of Kree who would appear in the hall, and that was an attacker. 10 minutes later, the remaining attackers in the hall were taken care of by Daisy and Pietro. Not long after the assailants were all killed, the Carey Empire's guards finally arrived, fully armed as they rushed into the hall. Rog had no intention of participating in the aftermath of the incident. He left it to the diplomatic mission to deal with. However, before returning to his room, he asked Roman Day about the current casualties of the diplomatic mission. Although the attackers were aggressive, no one from the diplomatic mission died, not even a single one of them was seriously injured. This result seemed quite abnormal, but with the personnel of the diplomatic mission, it was not something inconceivable. Among the 200+ people in the diplomatic mission, there were more than 150 guards. When the attack had just occurred, the guards led by Roman Day had protected most of the administrative staff who had no fighting power. Therefore, from the very beginning, these attackers had lost the opportunity to inflict serious damage on the diplomatic mission. Furthermore, the guards that the assailants faced were not ordinary guards, but veterans that had been carefully selected from the New Star Corps. Although the ranks of these guards were not very high, each of them had exquisite combat skills and rich battle experience. This was one of the reasons why the guards were able to organize an effective resistance in the first place. The next morning, Roman Day, who had been busy all night, sent someone to invite Rog to a small reception room in the hall. The statistics of last night's attack are out. 12 of the administrative staff were injured, and 37 of the guards were injured. At this point, Roman Day handed a translucent electronic tablet to Rog and continued, "As for the dead attackers, we did not immediately hand them over to the Carey Empire's guards. According to our preliminary investigation, these attackers all have military service experience, and it's very likely that they're active service personnel. We have also investigated the equipment they used. There were no similar models found in any of the Carey battlefields. We have tested the performance of these weapons and equipment. They all meet military standards, and their performance is even better than the Carey Empire's current equipment." Roger quickly browsed through the statistics of the attacker's equipment on the tablet. He then casually placed the tablet on the table beside him. "You know better than me what these conclusions mean. What did Xander say? Do we continue to discuss the details or return immediately?" Although they were on the Carey Empire's mother planet, Hala, the communicators in the diplomatic mission were enough to send the news back to Xander immediately. Of course, the precondition for sending the news back was that there was no high-frequency electronic interference like last night. What the autarch means is to continue the discussion and use this as a bargaining chip to obtain more benefits. Not leaving Hala immediately, Rog had to admit that the autarch Nova's decision was a little out of his expectations. According to his previous judgment, the autarch Nova should not have wanted to see the peace treaty signed. But now, the autarch Nova's decision was the complete opposite of his previous judgment. If the autarch Nova did not want to sign the peace treaty, the attack last night could be used as a reasonable excuse to give up on signing the peace treaty. Even if the people of Xander and the other factions were dissatisfied, they could not raise any effective objections. But the autarch Nova did not do so. Instead, he instructed the diplomatic mission to continue the discussion and obtain more benefits. Did he really want to sign the peace treaty? Then let's continue the discussion. After all, this is something for you big shots to deal with. As long as you haven't returned to Xander, my mission is not over. After bidding farewell to Roman Day, Rog returned to his room. The moment he opened the door, he saw the communicator on the table. It was a communicator that did not exist before he left the room. The incident last night was not done by my people. I know who arranged it, but I can't tell you their names. Rog had just turned on the communicator when Ronan's big blue face appeared on the screen. He spoke with a serious face. You had someone put a communicator in my room just to tell me this? Rog knew that the attackers last night were not Ronan's people. Unless Ronan was crazy, he would never do something like this. Chapter 388. Of course not. I'm here to remind you that as long as the diplomatic mission doesn't leave Hala, their attacks on the diplomatic mission won't stop. Maybe it's once a day, or maybe it's twice a day. If you don't want the mission to fail, then it's best if you don't leave the guild hall during this time. Although Luo Nan didn't really get along with the other members of the opposition, they were allies standing on the same front when it came to stopping the signing of the peace agreement. The only difference was that Luo Nan had reached a consensus with Rog in private, while the other members of the opposition didn't. I understand. Thank you for the reminder. Rog replied politely. I'll tell you something else. The female mutant beside you has already attracted their interest. I don't know if they'll carry out any special operations on this matter. Also, your bill from last night has already been sent to me. I personally hope that you can control your purchasing desire a bit. Since Luo Nan was using the payment card under his name, all the bills from last night were sent to Luo Nan's account. Under normal circumstances, since Luo Nan dared to give his payment card to Rog, he wouldn't care too much about how much money Rog spent. But this morning, after receiving the bill from the bank, even Luo Nan, the supreme accuser, couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Rog's spending last night was a bit shocking. To be precise, it was a shocking number with 8 zeros to the left of the decimal point. Last night was the first time I experienced the prosperity of the Carey Empire. It was inevitable that I couldn't control the urge to pay the bill. I won't spend so crazily in the future. Rog didn't really remember how much he spent last night, but he vaguely remembered that it should be several small goals. I'll lead the fleet to leave the mother planet in a few hours. I'll first go to the outlying base of the new star core for a stroll. I won't go to Xander for the time being before you return. If you have any other needs, you can contact Rothschild at any time. His private number is in the communicator. After ending the call with Luo Nan, Rog threw the communicator into the psychic scroll and headed straight to Daisy's room. He wasn't surprised that the diplomatic mission would continue to be attacked. However, he didn't expect the opposition to be interested in Daisy while preventing the peace agreement from being signed. Although Luo Nan didn't say anything during the call just now, Rog had captured an additional piece of information. Luo Nan didn't report the current development of the Inhumans. Otherwise, the opposition wouldn't have developed such an intense interest in Daisy after discovering that she was an Inhuman. Through the Golden Jacks database, Rog knew that the solar system to which Earth belonged was within the Carey Empire's military region. It was under Luo Nan's jurisdiction. Luo Nan had always been clear about the recent situation of the mutants on Earth and the Moon. This could be inferred from when he arranged for Maximus to bewitch Jia-ing. However, he concealed the latest information about the Inhumans and did not report it to the Empire. Even after losing 2 Kree warships, they did not reveal anything about the Inhumans. This was interesting. It seems like the Kree Empire's highest accuser wasn't as loyal to the Kree Empire as the rumors said. However, Rog wasn't particularly surprised that Luo Nan would do this. He even understood it a bit. No intelligent creature would like the feeling of being controlled by a computer. No matter how intelligent and advanced the computer was, it was impossible for this innate biological instinct to reject it to disappear. Speaking of which, it was unknown whether it was a coincidence or an inevitable result after technology had developed to a certain degree. The Kree Empire and Xander, these two technologically advanced countries, were both ruled by the artificial intelligence they created. The controller of the Kree Empire was a life computer created by the Kree, Supreme Intelligence. The controller of Xander was a super life computer created by Xander, the World Mind. Whether it was the Supreme Intelligence or the World Mind, they both recorded the history and civilization of their respective countries. The only difference was that the Supreme Intelligence's control was in the open. It was known to ordinary people. The control of the World Mind was a lot more hidden. Xander had the so-called New Star Supreme who controlled the highest authority of the New Star Army. However, the New Star Army's greatest trump card, New Star Energy, was generated and controlled by the World Mind. Once the World Mind revoked the authority of all New Star soldiers to use the New Star Army's energy, the famous New Star Army would fall into a mediocre state without any suspense. One was to rule the Empire openly, while the other was to control the strongest armed forces in the dark, hiding himself behind the scenes. Although the methods were somewhat different, the results were similar. That was absolute control that was unparalleled and could not be challenged by anyone. He did not know if this phenomenon would occur when Earth's technology developed to a certain limit. While his thoughts were in a mess, Rog came to the door of Daisy's room and gently knocked on the door. "Come in." After receiving Daisy's reply, Rog pushed open the door that did not have much defensive power and walked straight in. At this time, Daisy was still wearing the second-class military officer's uniform, but her hands were playing with a few gemstone jewelry that she had just bought last night. Because she had bought a lot of jewelry, Daisy only kept a few that she was interested in at the moment. As for the rest, they were all placed in Rog's psychic scroll. Not only Daisy, but even the technological products that Pietro had bought were also in Rog's psychic scroll. "What's wrong?" Daisy put down the jewelry in her hands and asked curiously. "Last night's battle has caused the person behind the attackers to target you. They know that you are an Inhuman. Next, they may have some special operations against you. During this time, you need to pay attention to yourself. Do not leave the guild hall alone. If there are more attacks, you must team up with Pietro. Do not act alone." Daisy's strength was not bad, and she did not lack operational experience. But she was still in her early 20s. She was at an age where she was easily impulsive, so Rog had no choice but to come over and remind her. "Do you know who ordered the attackers?" Daisy continued to ask. "I only have a rough idea. In any case, you need to be careful for the next few days to avoid any accidents." After saying this, Rog did not stay in Daisy's room for too long. He immediately turned and left. Late at night, when most of the members of the diplomatic mission had already fallen asleep, the attack that Luo Nan had warned of occurred once again. Boom! A huge explosion rang out in the guild hall, waking everyone up with a start. Unlike last night, the guards of the diplomatic mission quickly organized a counterattack this time. They repelled all the attackers in a short time. Chapter 389. If they hadn't made any progress after being ambushed yesterday, there was no need for them to return to Xander. They could have just retired. The ambushers' ambush was easily repelled. Aside from causing everyone to lose sleep, the ambushers didn't cause any harm to the diplomatic mission. However, just as Ronan predicted, the opposition's ambush was far from over. On the afternoon of the second day, when the ambassador and the other negotiators had just returned to the hall, the opposition's ambush squad appeared once again. This time, the results were completely different from the night before. The vice-ambassador didn't retreat in time and was struck in the right leg, completely losing the ability to move. If it wasn't for the centurion Roman Day standing in front of the injured vice-ambassador, he would have been the first member of the diplomatic mission to die. The opposition's ambush had thoroughly infuriated the ambassador and the centurion. In response, the diplomatic mission raised a strong protest against the Carey Empire, demanding that the Carey Empire fulfill their duty of protecting the diplomatic mission. The Carey Empire satisfied the diplomatic mission's request and deployed a large number of security forces around the hall. However, on the night that the Carey Empire strengthened their security forces, the diplomatic mission was met with the largest ambush yet. Over 100 ambushers rushed into the hall and launched a suicide attack far greater than any of the previous ones. That night, the ambushers achieved glorious results. A fifth of the guards died on the spot and a third were injured. Just this attack alone reduced the number of guards of the diplomatic mission by half. At this time, the diplomatic mission and the Carey Empire's negotiators were faced with an incomparably realistic question. Should they continue negotiating the details of the peace treaty? It had only been 3 days and the diplomatic mission had already been ambushed 4 times. And with the passage of time, the ambushers' attacks became more and more frenzied. For example, tonight's ambushers were a complete suicide squad. The ambushers who rushed into the hall didn't have any strategy at all. The only thing they did was to recklessly charge at the diplomatic mission's guards and detonate the bombs on their bodies. It was this reckless fighting style that allowed the ambushers to achieve their most glorious results so far, reducing the diplomatic mission's guards by half. Does Nova Supreme still want to continue the negotiations? At this rate, it would only take 2 or 3 more attacks at most for most of the diplomatic mission to die here. No, it might not even be 2 or 3 times. Just 1 is enough. As long as the ambushers are crazy enough, a powerful enough weapon of mass destruction will be enough to completely wipe out the diplomatic mission. Rog sat on a chair in the hall and asked the centurion Roman Day with a casual expression. Although the diplomatic mission's casualties were quite high tonight, he wasn't particularly worried about the commissions. This kind of suicide attack was something out of their control. Even if he summoned over 100 shadow clones, it was impossible to completely stop these crazy attackers. Furthermore, he didn't think the time requirement for the commission still existed. Protect the safety of the diplomatic mission during the signing of the peace agreement. This was the time limit stated by the system. Although the Carey Empire and Xander Star hadn't officially announced that they would sign a peace agreement, the current situation didn't seem like it was possible to sign a peace agreement. Of course, day, from the diplomatic mission a failure. However, Rog still believed in his judgment. Currently, the casualties didn't reach the minimum requirement for Day's commission to fail. Nova Supreme hasn't replied yet. However, the Carey Empire's representative has already proposed to change the time of the negotiations. As the chief military officer of the diplomatic mission, Roman Day's expression was gloomy. Regardless of the circumstances under which the diplomatic mission's members were injured, the ultimate responsibility couldn't be bypassed as the chief military officer. He could already imagine what kind of impeachment and internal trial he would face when he returned to Xander. That would not be a very pleasant image. Nova Supreme hasn't replied. What about the ambassador? What's his decision? As the person in charge of the diplomatic mission, the ambassador had the right to decide on whether to continue the negotiations without Nova Supreme's explicit orders. That included the Carey Empire's proposal to change the time of the negotiations. Changing the time of the negotiations was just on the surface. The real meaning of this proposal was that the peace treaty would probably not be signed this time. From the attacks of the opposition, it was obvious that they didn't care about the peacemakers. Otherwise, the opposition wouldn't have dared to attack the diplomatic mission one after the other. Apart from that, what was even more intriguing was the stance of the Supreme Wisdom during this time. Simply put, as the actual ruler of the Carey Empire, the Supreme Wisdom did nothing after the diplomatic mission arrived at Hala. The Supreme Wisdom didn't give any actual support to the peacemakers, nor did it show any stance to stop the opposition's attacks. In these few days, the Supreme Wisdom seemed to have crashed. There were no instructions at all. It was precisely because of the Supreme Wisdom's silence that the opposition's attacks became more frequent and more frenzied. The ambassador is still considering. Roman Day replied in a tired tone. If the ambassador comes to any conclusion, or if Nova Supreme's instructions arrive, just send someone to inform me. After that, Rog left the meeting room without looking back. The next day, before dawn, a young diplomatic mission guard came to Rog's door and knocked frantically on it. What's the matter? Being woken up before dawn, Roger, who had just woken up, asked the young guard at the door in a dissatisfied tone. Officer Rog, Officer Day requests that you go to the meeting room immediately. Emergency assembly. Emergency assembly? When he heard this, Rog, who hadn't fully woken up, was stunned. I'm not an official member of the new Star Corps. What does an emergency assembly have to do with me? Just as he was about to close the door and continue to sleep, he suddenly thought of something and instantly woke up. Centurion Roman Day couldn't possibly not know his true identity, but even so, he still arranged for someone to inform him. There was only one possibility, and that was that something had happened. A few minutes later, Rog, who had quickly washed up, came to the meeting room and saw all the military officers in full armor, as well as the ambassador and the deputy in a wheelchair. Since Officer Rog is here, I'll get straight to the point. Roman Day took a deep breath, and then said with a serious expression that Rog had never seen before, half an hour ago, the Carey Empire declared war on the Corps again. The main ship outside Hala was attacked by the Carey army, and the enemy was outnumbered. We are now in the enemy's capital. Chapter 390. During the war, they were trapped in the enemy's capital and lost all their support. It had to be said that this was downright bad news. When Roman Day said these words in a serious tone, most of the people in the reception room showed a dignified expression. The entire reception room suddenly became incomparably quiet. At this time, Rog, Pietro, and Daisy's expressions didn't change at all. The three people in the hall were different from the rest. Rog, what do you think about this? Romain Day, the centurion of the New Star Legion and the chief military officer of the diplomatic mission, swept his gaze across the hall and finally set it on Logue. I don't have any opinion. Didn't you already expect this situation before the mission? Now it's just a prediction turned into reality. It's not a big deal. Although Rog didn't know what the Carey Empire was planning, but from the fact that the hall hasn't been attacked yet, it seems like the Carey Empire didn't plan to annihilate them immediately. Since the Carey Empire didn't have the intention to annihilate them, then for Rog, it wasn't a particularly serious problem. Isn't it just the destruction of the main ship near planet Halley? There's no need to make a fuss. No opinion? Is this your answer as a first-class military officer? You are dereliction of duty. When Rog finished his answer, before the chief military officer Roman Day said anything, a civil officer sitting near the ambassador suddenly stood up and raised his right hand to point at Rog and shouted loudly. Dereliction of duty? Haha. Looking at this 30-years-old civil officer with a face full of arrogance, Rog laughed disdainfully. You idiot, you don't really think I'm a member of your new Star Corps, right? The reason I'm here is because your new Star Supreme personally asked me to come here. Also, I don't like being pointed at by people. When Rog spoke, this young and arrogant civil officer saw his blood-red Sharingan and screamed in horror. Sharingan illusion. Rog gave this ignorant civil officer a small lesson, letting him taste the most terrifying illusion in his heart. Shrill screams suddenly sounded in the hall. Just when the other military officers couldn't help but want to stop Rog, Rog took the initiative to remove the illusion on the civil officer. This time, I'll only teach you a small lesson. If there's a next time, I'll break your hand. Although the illusion on the civil official had been dispelled, the terrifying illusion he had experienced was deeply imprinted in his mind, leaving an indelible mark in his heart. Not only that, the extreme emotional changes in a short period of time caused dense sweat to pour out of his forehead. The sudden adrenaline made him uncontrollably gasping for breath. Enough, he didn't mean it, let's forgive him. In the end, it was still the chief military officer, Roman Day, who smoothed things over. What we need to solve now is to return to Xandal Star. If any of you have any plans, why don't you tell us now, we can discuss them together. When the atmosphere in the reception room fell into a strange silence again, Roman Day spoke again. Under Roman Day's signal, many military officers and civil officers gave their own suggestions. Many of them used diplomatic channels and public pressure to force the Kree Empire to let the envoy leave, as well as to take the initiative to put down their weapons and seek reconciliation with the Kree Empire. The civil officers' suggestions were basically to use political means and channels to force the Kree Empire to let them leave. The military officers' suggestions were much more simple and crude. Gather all forces and force a way out of the encirclement. Or use the hall as a stronghold, defend the place, and fight a defensive battle that would last for who knows how long. Rog didn't participate in any of the discussions. Instead, he watched as the civil and military officers quarreled fiercely. Whether it was the civil officer's suggestion, which was inclined to surrender, or the military officer's suggestion, which was similar to a life-and-death struggle, Rog didn't think highly of either. Because no matter which side proposed the plan, it would ultimately end in failure. Although Rog didn't know why the Kree Empire only surrounded the hall and didn't attack, one thing he was certain of was that the Kree Empire had no intention of letting the envoy leave. The reason for this situation was very likely because the pro-peace faction and the pro-war faction of the Kree Empire were still in a fierce confrontation. That was why the main ship was destroyed, but the envoy was left behind. Shut the F***ck up, all of you, sit down. Look at you guys now, do you still have any semblance of the new Star Corps soldiers? While the civil officers and military officers were quarreling over their own plans, Roman Day suddenly stood up, his body erupting with a dazzling light as he cursed loudly. Under Roman Day's angry rebuke, the civil and military officers immediately shut their mouths and returned to their seats. Rog, you know you must have a way to let the envoy safely return to Xandal, otherwise you wouldn't have brought your companions here. Since it's already come to this, there's no need to hide it from everyone. Tell me, what do you plan to do? Roman Day, who had just been scolding the civil and military officers, now asked Rog in an incomparably calm tone, as if he wasn't the one who was scolding them. No wonder you're the only one who can become a centurion among so many people here. Just based on your observation skills alone, you're fully qualified to be a centurion. Rog didn't tell anyone about his plan, not even Pietro and Daisy knew he had a backup plan from the start. However, Roman Day had accurately grasped this from the fact that he brought Daisy and Pietro along. Gather the envoy, I'll open a portal to send you back. It's time for this bodyguard mission to end. Rog didn't say how he was going to open the portal, but after he said that, Roman Day didn't hesitate and immediately gave the order for everyone to gather. When all the members of the diplomatic mission, including the injured guards and the corpses of the guards who had died in battle, were gathered in the huge reception hall, Log cast the teleportation portal spell. A portal 3 meters in diameter appeared out of thin air in the reception hall, shining with golden sparks. Through this circular portal, one could clearly see the new Star Corps headquarters hall on the opposite side. Don't just stand there, hurry up. Opening a portal directly from the mother planet of the Kree Empire to Xandal was no small burden for Rog. Looking at the portal in front of them, the members of the envoy revealed an expression of disbelief. They had never imagined that the terrible situation of being trapped in the enemy's capital during the war could be resolved in such a casual manner. Chapter 391. Dimensionality Reduction. This is the scene that often appears when Xander faces other technologically backward planets. But now, Rog used an unscientific but very magical portal to let the members of the diplomatic mission experience the feeling of dimensionality reduction. Under the orderly arrangement of Chief Military Officer Roman Day, the members of the diplomatic mission walked into the portal one by one and returned to the new Star Corps headquarters on Xander. When the portal appeared on the first floor of the new Star Corps headquarters building, a team of fully armed new Star Corps soldiers rushed over. Then, they witnessed the appearance of the members of the diplomatic mission one after another. From the first member of the diplomatic mission entering the portal to Rog entering the portal last, this retreat operation took less than 5 minutes. However, in less than 5 minutes, the mana in Rog's body was completely depleted. Once again, he experienced the physical and mental exhaustion brought about by the exhaustion of mana. Although the consumption was a bit high, it was all worth it. Bringing the members of the diplomatic mission safely back to Xander means that his commission is more than half completed. He only needs to get the reward promised by the new Star Supreme, and he will also get 200 ninja coins from the system. I have brought the members of the diplomatic mission back as agreed. You can start preparing the commission reward. 3 days later, I will receive the promised reward. After giving Roman Day enough time to prepare, Rog left the new Star Corps headquarters building with Pietro and Daisy and returned to the Bright Starry Sky hotel where he previously lived. The several suites that were previously booked are still in service, so after returning to the hotel, Rog and the other two returned to their respective suites. After returning to the suite, the first thing Rog did was to take off the dark green uniform of the new Star Corps and change back to his original clothes. Then, he summoned the latest game console of the Carry Empire that he bought on Hala from the Psychic Scroll. But before he began to enjoy the game of the Carry Empire, he first called the front desk of the hotel and asked the hotel to prepare a delicate and expensive enough lunch. Although there were some console games on Earth that were produced very well with high scores, they were limited by the current technology on Earth. The console games on Earth were unable to provide players with an immersive and realistic experience. However, to the technologically advanced Carry Empire, this was not a problem. After putting on the language translator produced by the Carry Empire, Rog put on the dark sci-fi virtual reality gaming helmet. For the next 3 days, Rog used his actions to prove what it meant to be unable to extricate oneself from the game. In those 3 days, he did not leave his suite at all. Like a paralyzed patient, he wore a gaming helmet and lay on the sofa in the living room all day. Apart from some necessary daily activities, all of his waking time was spent playing games in the Carry Empire. At first, Pietro didn't quite understand Rog's idea. However, when he put on the gaming helmet, he quickly succumbed. 3 days passed in a flash, and when the agreed time to receive the reward arrived, Rog reluctantly took off the gaming helmet, left the hotel alone, and went to the headquarters of the new Star Corps. After receiving the promised reward, I'll go back and clear Rise of the Empire 3, then I can start playing Origin of the Universe. Fighter Hero is also not bad, but there's no way to play online, otherwise it would be a good game. Roger, who was sitting in a reception room, patiently waited for Roman Day's arrival and planned the next step of his plan to clear the dungeon. At first, his mood was very happy. After all, he was about to receive his reward and the ninja coin reward from the system. However, as time passed, his mood gradually changed from joy to dissatisfaction. An hour, now he waited in the reception room for an hour. When will Centurion Roman Day come? I've been waiting here for an hour. This was the 3rd time Rog urged the staff in the reception room. I'm sorry, Mr. Rog. We just received the latest news. Centurion Roman Day received the latest order from the Corps and is now going to the front line of the battlefield. He can't come to receive you. The female staff in the reception room answered with a standard smile and tone. Set off to the front line of the battlefield? Forget it, it doesn't matter if he doesn't come, I just want to know when I can get the promised reward. Rog suppressed his dissatisfaction and continued to ask. I'm sorry, Mr. Rog. We can't inquire about your reward for the time being. The green-skinned female staff continued to answer with a standard smile and tone. Can't inquire? At this time, Rog has realized something. Then can you contact the new Star Supreme? I want to meet with the new Star Supreme directly. I'm sorry, Mr. Rog. You don't have the authority to request a meeting with the Supreme for the time being. It was the same standard smile and tone again. He doesn't even have the authority to request a meeting with the new Star Supreme. Rog understood everything in an instant. This time, he encountered a renege again. Seeing that you're just a basic staff, I won't make things difficult for you. Now, I'll give you a warm reminder, you have 10 seconds to leave here immediately. I'm going to kill someone. When he said these words, Rog's face didn't show any anger or dissatisfaction, and he said with a smile. I'm sorry, Mr. Rog. You. Lightning release, lightning palm. Before the female staff finished speaking, Rog raised his right hand and aimed at the door of the reception room, and 5 or 6 arm-thick silver-white lightning surged out of his palm. Rumble. Strong thunder and a huge explosion sounded at the same time, and the silver-white lightning entangled with the orange-red fireball produced by the explosion. You have 5 seconds left. This time, Rog didn't hear any of those formulaic answers. He only heard screams of fear. The staff in the reception room screamed and left, and Rog moved his wrist, summoning the Kusanagi sword that he hadn't used for a long time. He didn't expect that after he had made a name for himself, there would still be someone who dared to renege on his debt. Moreover, he had used such a despicable method. After summoning the Kusanagi sword, Rog casually waved the sword, and then walked out of the passage. The New Star Core, this is a powerful core that is famous in the universe. What Rog wants to do now is to single-handedly destroy the New Star Core headquarters building. Chapter 392. The guards in the headquarters building came quickly. Rog had just stepped out of the reception room destroyed by the Thunder Palm when he saw the fully armed guards in dark green uniforms and simple armor. A standard 6-man squad with standard explosive rifles, no heavy firepower. Rog glanced at these guards and instinctively made a simple judgment of the enemy units in his mind. Put down your weapons. Put down your weapons immediately. Looking at Rog, who was strolling leisurely, the captain at the front of the squad immediately shouted. You think you're qualified to make me put down my weapons? Rog replied with disdain. He was in a good mood today. For a gamer like him, the console games of the Kree Empire brought him the most enjoyable and pleasant mood in recent times. However, today's debt-reneging incident had completely destroyed his hard-earned good mood. The target has obvious resistance, permission to shoot on the spot. The captain made the decision to shoot Rog on the spot. But before he finished his order, Rog, who was more than 10 meters away from them, swept past them like a ghost. Chi! These guards didn't even see the afterimage left by Rog. Their necks were cut by the Kusanagi sword in Rog's hand. Bright red blood sprayed out from the wound like rain. Rog didn't plan to talk nonsense with these guards. Although he knew that these guards were just fulfilling their duties, in a battle, their position was different from the camp, which was enough reason to take their lives. In the reception room, he spared the staff because they were not soldiers. And now, even though the guards he killed were ordinary, basic personnel, they were warriors. They were enemy soldiers who had raised their weapons against him in battle. When the guards whose carotid arteries had been completely cut fell to the ground one by one, Roger casually took the communicator from the last guard while he was still barely able to stand. I don't care what reason you have for refusing to pay me what I deserve. But your decision makes me very angry, very angry. There has never been anyone who cannot pay me. New Star Core not, New Star Supreme not. After saying this in the public channel of the New Star Core, Rog crushed the communicator in his hand and walked straight towards the elevator. The New Star Core did have a strong reputation in the universe, but he never put them in his heart. The New Star Core was strong, but the strength of the New Star Core was that it was a well-equipped army with a large number of people. It wasn't because of a single person. But Rog was different. The reason why he was strong was because of his own strength. Rog's speech in the public channel was immediately transmitted to the ears of all the guards in the headquarters building, including the mastermind behind the scenes who tried to not pay him. What do we do now? He doesn't seem to have any intention of holding back. In the command room on the 75th floor of the New Star Army headquarters, the guard commander of the headquarters said to a man in his early 30s. What are you afraid of? He's only one person. Even if the accuser Ronan is here, he won't be able to leave the building alive. If Roger was present, he would definitely be able to recognize this arrogant Carry man in his early 30s. This person was none other than the civil official of the diplomatic mission that he taught a lesson with his Sharingan. He's not the accuser Ronan. He's the man who defeated Ronan twice. Chris, this is just a personal grudge between you two. I can't let the headquarters building fall into a crisis because of your personal grudge. I'll be court-martialed. The guard commander of the headquarters building voiced his concerns. No one will let you go to court-martialed. This is also my father's decision. Otherwise, why do you think Roman Day received a temporary order to go to the front lines? I can tell you directly what his reward is. After hearing it, you should know why my father supports my plan. 500 sets of Star 4 series power armors, 35th generation new Star fighters, and various top-secret scientific documents. The guard commander couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air after listening to Chris's words. Whether it was the Star 4 series individual equipment or the 5th generation new Star fighters, they were all the latest top-notch armaments developed by the new Star Corps. Even the main force that was currently fighting the Carey Empire only had a small number of Star 4 series power armors. As for the 5th generation new Star fighters, they were the latest generation of fighters that had yet to enter service. It's unbelievable that Prime would give these equipment to an outsider who doesn't belong to the Corps, and he even used a commission as a reward. The news of Rog accepting Prime Star's commission as a military officer of the diplomatic mission was spread out after the diplomatic mission returned to Xander. In the past few days, many people were curious about what kind of reward Xian Xing Supreme offered for Luo Gu, a powerful existence who had defeated Luo Nan, the accuser, twice, to join the diplomatic mission. However, the guard commander of the headquarters building never imagined that Prime Star's reward would be strategic materials like the Star 4 power armor and the 5th generation new Star fighter. After knowing the specific content of Rog's reward, the guard commander finally understood why Chris's father, the chairman of the military council, would support Chris's revenge for a personal grudge. Taking revenge on Rog was just a matter of convenience. What they really wanted was the Star 4 power armor and the 5th generation new Star fighter. In the short time that Chris was talking to the guard commander of the building, Rog had already broken through the 3rd floor of the security force and arrived at the 8th floor from the 5th floor. Looking at Chris, who had a ferocious smile, and then looking at Rog on the monitor screen, the guard commander of the building finally made a decision. From now on, issue a black intrusion alert. Dispatch all guards to annihilate the intruders in the headquarters building. The guard commander issued the highest level of command in the public channel to annihilate the intruders. The entire headquarters building immediately rang with an ear-piercing alarm, and red warning lights in every corner of the building lit up at the same time. At the same time, the staff in the headquarters building began to evacuate in an orderly manner. The important people with higher positions were also escorted by the guards and left on the aircraft on the roof of the building. Not long after, only the guards and Rog, who had just arrived at the 10th floor, were left in the headquarters building. In order to successfully kill Rog, the guard commander of the building issued a black intrusion alert that had never been used since the construction of the headquarters building. Chapter 393. The black invasion alert was issued, which meant that the only way left for the commander and Chris was to successfully kill Rog. If Rog is killed, with the ability of Chris' father, not only will they not be punished for this operation, but they will also be able to successfully obtain the reward that originally belonged to Rog. Of course, if they fail, the consequences will also be very serious. First of all, the commander of the guards will be court-martialed. Secondly, Chris may die. Finally, Chris' father, the Speaker of the Military Council, will also be strongly impeached by the Supreme Nova or other political enemies. However, Chris and the commander of the guards didn't think that they will fail. This is the headquarters of the new Star Corps, where the strongest guards in the entire Xander are stationed. If even these guards can't deal with Rog, then there are basically not many troops that can deal with Rog. Rog didn't care about the sirens that came one after another. He still maintained his initial leisurely posture and walked slowly toward the top of the building. Now he has reached the 10th floor of the building and defeated several guards that came to stop him. Although the overall quality of these guards is quite good, they don't lack experience and strength. But the problem is that the strength gap between them and Rog is too big, so big that they can't even understand it. Nova energy, this magical energy that can greatly strengthen the new Star soldiers, in front of Rog, is completely ineffective. No matter how these guards use this Nova energy, there is only one ending, and that is, their lives will be completely ended by Rog's Kusanagi sword. Although these guards are trying very hard to stop Rog, until now, they haven't forced Rog to use offensive ninjutsu. In addition to the initial lightning palm and the body flicker technique that he used from time to time, Rog basically used simple taijutsu to deal with these guards. Although these taijutsu attacks look simple, for these guards, these seemingly simple attacks are fatal. However, relying on continuous attacks like moths to the flame, these guards finally stopped Rog's footsteps a little, slightly slowing his pace. Are the guards of the new Star Army headquarters only at this standard? As the battle progressed, Rog's evaluation of the new star army continued to drop. Originally, he thought that these guards with Nova energy would be able to display some dazzling strength. However, it turned out that the strength of these guards was not as good as the Umbu members of Konoha's intelligence agency. In terms of attacking methods and killing efficiency, his dark group members were several levels higher than these guards. The only thing that made them inferior to these guards was that the number of members of the dark group was much smaller. With these guards dying one after another, Rog successfully reached the 20th floor of the building. Then, it took a little time to reach the 30th floor of the building. Because they were inside the building, it was impossible for these guards to mobilize fighters or heavy energy cannons to attack Rog. The emptied building became Rog's stage, a bloody stage where he could fully display his killing skills. Rog's unstoppable advance was finally stopped when he reached the 36th floor of the building. At this time, the enemies he faced were no longer ordinary guards using blasters, but third-level warriors who were proficient in using Nova energy to attack or defend. According to the classification of the New Star Army, the third-level Denarian Army warriors have 75% of the strength of a centurion, and also have the ability to fly. Although this was the classification of the New Star Army, after killing who knows how many guards, Rog knew that this so-called 75% of the strength of a centurion was just a superficial statement. To be precise, the third-level Denarian Army warriors have 75% of the Nova energy of a centurion. The guards that were killed by Rog before were second-level Denarian Army warriors. According to the classification of the army, they should have 50% of the strength of a centurion, just that they can't fly. However, after really fighting, Rog discovered how unreliable this statement was. If the guards that couldn't even block his sword had half of the strength of a centurion, then the New Star Army would have been annihilated by the Carry Empire long ago. These guards didn't have half of the strength of a centurion, but half of the Nova energy of a centurion. For a long time, Rog believed that energy was energy, and strength was strength. Energy was a part of strength, but it wasn't the entire strength. Take Rog for example. Although he had never used Nova energy before, as long as he was given 10% of the Nova energy of a centurion, even if he didn't have any chakra, he was still confident that he could kill all the soldiers below the level of a centurion. Energy was just a weapon. How to use this weapon to quickly kill the enemy was the standard to determine whether a soldier was good or not. Finally, some decent people have come. Seeing that you are unarmed, I won't bully you with weapons. After saying that, Rog threw the Kusanagi sword back into the summon scroll. At this time, there were only 3 guards in front of him. Although their attire was no different from the guards he killed before, Rog didn't see any weapons on them. Whether it was firearms such as blasters, or cold weapons such as sabers and daggers, they didn't have any. The moment the Kusanagi sword disappeared from Rog's hand, the 3 guards didn't hesitate and immediately launched an attack. Their bodies shone with the golden light that Rog had seen from Roman Day. Facing the attack of the 3 guards, Rog didn't retreat, but attacked them at the same time. Just when Rog thought that the 3 guards were going to fight him in close combat, their fists suddenly shone with golden Nova energy. Then, these Nova energy shrouded their fists and attacked him like cannonballs. Young man, you don't have any morals. These 6 golden Nova energy attacked Rog's different parts at the same time and blocked several of his escape angles. No matter which angle he dodged to, at least 1 or 2 of the Nova energy would hit him. Since his opponent had already unleashed an energy attack, Rog naturally wouldn't be so foolish as to use his physical body to block it. With a thought, a layer of light blue chakra instantly covered his body, giving him a 360-degree energy armor with no blind spots. Boom! 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 The 3 Nova energy first hit Rog's chakra armor and exploded like a bomb, bursting with a dazzling golden light. Chapter 394. The power of these 3 Nova energy is not small, it is already close to the power of a rocket. But even so, these 3 Nova energy did not penetrate the chakra coat on Rog's body, causing him any substantial damage. However, the shock wave generated by the explosion made his forward posture stop, and his whole speed suddenly slowed down. His speed slowed down, but that's not the worst situation. The worst thing is that the dazzling light generated by the explosion created an effect like a flash bomb, making Rog instinctively close his eyes. So this is the idea from the beginning? If the enemy these three guards are facing now is not Rog, then this sudden flash attack is enough to determine their victory. But unfortunately, they are not facing an ordinary enemy, but Rog. Not long after he crossed into this world, before he mastered enough ninjutsu, Rog once had a favorite tactic. A secret killing tactic based on genjutsu, dark sneak technique. Although he has not experienced the feeling of being completely deprived of his vision by genjutsu, he is good at secret killing tactics, so he naturally knows how to face this kind of attack from the dark. Losing his vision will not have much impact on him, especially in close combat. Almost at the moment when he closed his eyes, he gathered chakra in the nerves of his ears, stimulating the ear nerves and greatly improving his hearing. At the same time, his amazing combat intuition and combat experience honed over the years also made up for the impact of the loss of vision for the first time. Although he can't see with his eyes, Rog clearly perceives the movements of the three guards. Whether it is their route of advance or attack trajectory, it is like a three-dimensional image in his mind. The left attack is the fastest, a straight punch, the target is his head. The right attack is the strongest, a side kick, the target is his torso. The middle attack is the slowest, a heavy punch, the target is his chest. In the blink of an eye, Rog had determined the attacking methods of the three guards and instantly formulated a counterattack strategy. Retreat half a step, avoid the straight punch on the left, and seize the target's left arm. Break the target's left arm, and destroy the target's center of gravity with the left leg. He bent down and pushed the target on the left, dodging the side kick from the target on the right. Heavy punch to the head of the target on the ground. With the target's head as the center, heavy punch to attack the standing leg of the target on the right to destroy the stability of the target on the right. He got up and punched the unsteady target on the right with a right hook, sending the target on the right flying and causing it to crash into the target in the middle. Taking advantage of the situation, he quickly attacked the middle target's head, chest, and throat with quick punches. He continuously pushed back the target, and finally finished off the middle target with a monster strength punch. This entire set of counterattack strategies took less than a second to completely emerge in Rog's mind. In the next few seconds, Rog executed this counterattack strategy perfectly. Boom! When the guard in the middle was sent flying by the monstrous strength fist and crashed into the wall behind him, Rog opened his eyes. The sudden flash attack should have allowed the three guards to completely seize the initiative of the battle and even secure victory in one fell swoop. However, things did not go as they expected. Not only did Rog not fall into the situation of being besieged by the three of them, but he also severely injured two of them and instantly resolved the situation of being besieged. It wasn't until the guard in the middle was sent flying that the guard on the right, who had not been attacked much, finally stood up and looked at Rog in disbelief. Although he didn't know how Rog did it, he clearly saw that Rog's eyes were always closed during the fight. With his eyes closed, he resolved the joint attack of the three of them and severely injured two of them. The guard finally understood why Rog's invasion was classified as the highest level of black invasion. This was simply not something a human could do. He was a fighting machine with a humanoid appearance. Don't be so surprised. There are many people who can do this. I know a blind top fighter. The blind top fighter in Rog's mouth is none other than Daredevil. Speaking of Daredevil, Rog suddenly found that he hadn't paid attention to his news for a long time, and he didn't know how he was doing now and whether he was still fighting against Kingpin in Hell's Kitchen. You guys rely too much on Nova energy and advanced weapons. If you continue like this, you will forget how to fight in close combat sooner or later. Looking at the shocked guard, Rog gave his own advice. The remaining guard did not refute Rog. After thinking about it, he helplessly found that what Rog said was true. You can think about this problem later, I'm in a hurry now. So, as soon as his voice fell, Rog took the initiative to launch an attack and attacked the guard like lightning. Although the guard tried to resist Rog, the huge gap in strength doomed his resistance to be meaningless. 3 seconds later, the guard was hit in the chest by Rog's monster punch, and he flew out upside down, spitting out bright red blood from his mouth. After dealing with the guard, Rog did not stop at all and continued to walk towards the upper floor of the building. 40 floors, 50 floors, 60 floors. Although the guards in the building tried their best to stop Roger and kill this menacing intruder, they couldn't do anything about it. However, their efforts did not get the report they imagined. The number of guards decreased rapidly at a terrifying speed, but Rog's advancement was not affected in any way. Mobilize the Imperial Guards. We must mobilize the Imperial Guards, and now only the Imperial Guards of Supreme can stop him. Looking at the godlike Rog on the monitor screen, the guard commander of the building said loudly. The guard commander was not the only one who lost his composure. Even Chris, who was originally arrogant, had an ashen face at this time. He never thought that Rog could really break through the endless siege of the building's guards and walk step by step to the top floor of the building. This is impossible. This is absolutely impossible. Even if it was a centurion of the New Star Legion, it was absolutely impossible to defeat all the guards of the headquarters building alone. This was simply not something a human could do. Chris's rank in the New Star Legion was not low. Although he walked the path of a civil official in the Legion, he was very clear about the strength of a centurion of the New Star Legion. It was precisely because of this comparison that he placed his hopes on the guards of the headquarters building. But it turned out that Chris underestimated the strength of the New Star Legion centurion, and also underestimated the gap between the centurion and Rog. Chapter 395. On the 75th floor of the Nova Corps headquarters building, Security Command Center. Just because I taught you a small lesson on Hala, you want my reward? At this time, Rog was holding the blaster he took from the guards of the building, and under his feet was Chris, who just wanted to escape but was kicked away by him. The reason why Rog suddenly came from the 60th floor to the command center on the 75th floor and kicked Chris under his feet was because Chris was sure that the guards of the headquarters building couldn't stop him. Looking at Rog, who has come to the 60th floor and showed strength far beyond that of a Supernova Corps centurion, Chris made the decision to leave the headquarters building immediately. As the initiator of all this, Chris knows very well what will happen to him if he falls into the hands of Rog. In the Hala Guild Hall, he just scolded Rog and was taught a lesson by Rog with Sharingan Genjutsu. If Rog found out that he was the one who had plotted all of this and caused Rog to be unable to successfully obtain his reward, then he would definitely end up in a worse state than before. Therefore, Chris planned to leave the headquarters building immediately and get away from the madman Rog completely. But he didn't expect that before he walked out of the command center, the floor of the command center was penetrated. At this time, Rog, who he didn't want to see the most, flew up from the hole in the floor. Then, he was sent flying by Log's kick and stepped on by Log. No. I'm not, I didn't, don't talk nonsense. After hearing Rog's question, Chris didn't have time to care about the pain in his chest and immediately denied it. Really? But I don't believe it. While talking, Rog raised the blaster in his hand and fired a shot at the invisible right back. Whoosh! The green explosive bullet accurately hit the guard who was hiding in the corner and trying to shoot in the dark. It was a headshot. It's really not me, I just didn't have time to evacuate the building. Chris explained with great emotion, but Rog didn't believe a word of his explanation. Whoosh! Just when Chris was about to continue to explain, Rog fired a shot at his right leg, and the green bullet directly penetrated his thigh. Ah! My leg is broken. Since he was a child, Chris has never felt such bone-piercing pain, and suddenly issued a harsh scream. Your leg is not broken yet, but if you don't shut up, I don't mind fulfilling your little wish. Rog looked at Chris, who was stepped on by his foot, with an impatient look on his face. He originally thought that the person who dared to his reward would be a little shrewd and a little domineering. He didn't expect that when he came to the command center, he actually saw Chris, this guy. In the beginning, he only wanted to blow this matter up and let the people of the New Star Army understand the consequences of reneging on their debt. However, when the security commander of the building issued the black intrusion alert and evacuated all unrelated personnel from the headquarters, he suddenly realized that he seemed to have found the location of the mastermind behind the scenes. When all unrelated personnel were evacuated, the only people left in the headquarters, according to common sense, were the guards of the building and Rog himself. However, when he used chakra to sense the situation in the building, he found that on the 75th floor of the building, there was a life form without Nova energy in his body. As everyone knows, the soldiers of the Nova Corps, whether it is the medics who just graduated from the Space Academy or the highest-ranking Centurions, all have Nova energy in their body. A person without Nova energy in his body, after the black intrusion alert was issued, not only did he not evacuate, but he stayed in the Security Command Center of the headquarters. This abnormal phenomenon aroused Rog's curiosity, and it also evoked some of his memories. During the days when he was a private investigator, he had studied criminal psychology. Some criminals like to return to the scene of the crime after committing a crime and gain a sense of control and satisfaction by witnessing the panic of the crowd and the reaction of the police. Especially for some particularly serious crimes, such as serial killings, it is even easier for the criminals to return to the scene of the crime. Even if it has been many years, these criminals will return to the scene of the crime and recall the specific details of the crime to gain a perverted sense of satisfaction. At that time, Rog didn't know that the person in the command center was Chris, but after discovering this abnormal phenomenon, the first thing that appeared in his mind was this theory that he saw in his research of criminal psychology. Then he thought about it carefully and found that his guess seemed to be correct. If it was because someone was dissatisfied with him or wanted to take his reward, then the mastermind behind the scenes would be in a safe place, or a place that he thought was safe, watching the whole scene. Unless the conditions didn't allow it, otherwise, the mastermind behind the scenes had more than an 80% chance of doing so. After all, watching how he suffered setbacks and even how he died would give the mastermind a sense of satisfaction that everything was under his control. After discovering, or rather, confirming, this point, the next step was very simple. Rog followed the plan, going up floor by floor, destroying the mastermind's plan bit by bit. In order to not let the mastermind notice the danger in advance, he deliberately controlled his pace to avoid scaring the mastermind away. Because the plan was going to fail bit by bit, the mastermind behind the scenes would not leave immediately. Instead, he would look forward to the next plan, looking forward to the hope of a comeback. When the mastermind behind the scenes, which was Chris, realized that the plan had no chance of success and planned to retreat in advance before the plan completely failed, Rog, who had been paying attention to him for a long time, didn't hesitate at all. He directly went from the 60th floor to the 75th floor and placed the result of failure in front of him. If it weren't for the lack of time and environment, Rog wouldn't have minded changing the method. He would have gone from the earth to heaven, and then from heaven to hell. Your Excellency Rog, he's still just a child. I hope you can be magnanimous and let him go first. Chris was afraid that Rog would really break his right leg, so he closed his mouth tightly and didn't dare to make any sound. At this moment, the guard commander of the building, under the protection of a team of guards, carefully approached Rog and said, "Just a child? A 30-year-old child?" After hearing the commander's words, Rog sneered, then shot Chris' left leg in front of the commander. Chapter 396. Ah! Chris, who couldn't bear the pain from his left leg being shot, screamed again. But this time, his scream only lasted for a short second before he forcibly suppressed it. He had no choice but to suppress it because Rog had already turned the muzzle of the blaster and aimed it at his head. Although the pain from his legs was unbearable, Chris knew which one he should choose between death and the other. "Mr. Rog, you..." The commander didn't expect that his humble begging for mercy would result in Rog shooting even more decisively. Looking at Chris, who was trying his best to endure the pain, the commander originally wanted to say something, but in the end, he didn't say anything. He signaled the guards beside him to put down their weapons and retreat a distance. Rog didn't want to continue shooting Chris, at least not until he figured out the ins and outs of the matter. However, the commander's words, "He's still a child," completely angered him. Although he didn't know how long the average lifespan of Xander's people was, Chris, who was under his foot, didn't look like a child at all. Rog didn't forget that Chris was once a civil official of the diplomatic mission, someone who was sent to the Carey Empire. And taking a step back, even if Chris was indeed a child by Xander's standards, this definitely wouldn't be a reason for him to let Chris go. Admit your mistakes, this was a principle that even 5- or 6-year-old children on Earth knew. The people that Rog despised the most were those who used age as an excuse after making a mistake. In his opinion, whether it was a 13- or 14-year-old underage kid or an old man in his 70s or 80s, as long as they did something wrong, they had to be responsible for their own actions. Respecting the old and loving the young was one thing, but being responsible for one's own actions was another. It was because he had seen too many bullshit things like, he's just a child, he's already old, and he's an old man, that he firmly believed that everyone had to be responsible for their own actions. From the looks of it, you should also know the ins and outs of this matter. Tell me, what exactly is going on? After barely suppressing the anger in his heart, Rog said coldly to the commander. No problem. As long as it's something Mr. Rog wants to know, I'll tell you everything I know. After hearing Rog's question, the commander was finally relieved. Although Rog still looks angry, at least he won't shoot Chris now. As long as Rog didn't shoot Chris, as long as Chris didn't die in front of him in the headquarters building, he could compromise on anything. Well, Mr. Rog, I wonder if you can let us stop Chris's bleeding first. If he continues to bleed like this, I'm afraid that he will die from excessive blood loss before he can give you a satisfactory compensation. The commander asked in a low voice again. He didn't look like a soldier at all. Instead, he looked more like a person who manipulated power all day long. More than 10 minutes later, in the living room next to the command center, Rog sat on the sofa with a calm face. Opposite him was the commander of the building's guards, and Chris, who had his wounds bandaged. Tell me everything you know. In the next few minutes, the commander spilled everything he knew without holding back. Including Chris's plan, the arrangement of Chris's father, how Chris found him, and some of the promises and benefits Chris gave him. In order not to let things continue to develop in a worse direction, the commander did not dare to hide the slightest bit of the truth. He told the whole story in full detail. After the commander finished speaking, Rog turned to look at Chris, who was silent, and his face became colder and colder. Just as he expected, Chris only wanted to use his father's power to retaliate a little, so that he couldn't get the reward he deserved so easily. But when he learned about the details of Rog's reward, he had some thoughts that he shouldn't have and told his father, the chairman of the military council, about the list of rewards. Then, his plan changed from the initial revenge to the invasion of Rog's reward. In order to successfully obtain the equipment that originally belonged to Rog, they deliberately set the location of the operation at the headquarters building. As long as they could successfully kill Rog in the headquarters building, they could conclude that Rog took credit for himself and caused a ruckus in the headquarters building and killed related staff members. Although this didn't seem to be in line with Rog's character, at that time, he would be dead, and no one would go against the chairman of the military council. When Rog was still alive, perhaps someone would be willing to fight for justice for him. But if he was dead, then naturally no one would be willing to stand up for a dead person. Especially since this was a dead person from another planet. So as long as Rog was dead, it didn't matter if other people believed it or not, it wouldn't affect Chris's plan. And the equipment that originally belonged to him would naturally return to the new Star Corps, and the military council would make reasonable arrangements. All in all, Chris's plan was feasible and had a chance of success. But the crux of the problem was that they had completely underestimated Rog's strength. In their plan, Luo Gu, who had defeated Luo Nan, the accuser, twice, was at most in existence stronger than the Centurion. After all, a Centurion was the strongest individual in the new Star Corps, and the possibility of Rog being stronger than a Centurion by several levels was instinctively ignored by them from the beginning. The new Star Corps was indeed very strong, but what they pursued wasn't the strength of an individual, but the strength of the Corps as a whole. So this possibility that was ignored from the beginning became the most fatal weakness in their plan. So that's how it is. No wonder when I first saw you 3 days ago in the guild hall, I felt that you had an innate arrogance. I didn't expect you to come from a powerful family. After listening to Chris's explanation, Rog said with a smile. Seeing the smile on Rog's face, Chris and the commander finally put down the big stone in their hearts and completely breathed a sigh of relief. Their surrender finally gave them the opportunity to peacefully resolve this matter. Chris didn't need to worry about his own safety, and the commander didn't need to worry about Chris dying in the headquarters building. Everything was starting to develop in a good direction. However, just when Chris and the commander felt that Rog had the idea of resolving the matter peacefully, Rog suddenly picked up the blaster on the table, pointed the muzzle directly at Chris's head, and decisively pulled the trigger. Shio! The green blaster bullet pierced through Chris's head without any suspense, completely taking away his life. The bright red blood that spurted out immediately dyed the clean table red. Your answer is very detailed, but I'm not satisfied. Rog put down the blaster in his hand, picked up the white napkin beside the table, and unhurriedly wiped his right hand that was splashed with Chris's blood. Inform his father, the chairman, that I'm waiting for him here. Chapter 397. Inform His Excellency. The commander's eyes kept switching between Chris and Rog, and he said with a look of disbelief. Now, he couldn't wait to completely conceal the matter of Chris' death, and then run as far as possible to avoid Chris' father venting his anger on him for the death of his only son. Although the position of commander of the new Star Corps headquarters is very good, compared to his own life, it's nothing. Yes, inform his father, tell him that I'm waiting for him here. You don't have to go personally, just let your men go. Looking at the panicked commander, Rog said unhurriedly, as if he didn't realize the consequences of his action of killing Chris. It doesn't matter, I can go personally. Yes, I can personally inform His Excellency. After hearing Rog's words again, the commander finally reacted, quickly stood up, and tried to leave the reception room. I just said, let your men go. You, stay here. Just by looking at the commander's expression, it's easy to know what he's thinking. Once he leaves the reception room, Rog can be 100% sure that he will never see this commander again. No problem, I will let others inform His Excellency. The commander originally wanted to fight for it, but when he saw Rog's emotionless eyes, he decisively gave up the idea of fighting for it. Under the commander's arrangement, the news of Chris being killed by Rog quickly spread to the military council, and to the ears of Chris' father. Although the guards have been arranged to inform Chris' father, the commander doesn't think that Chris' father will obediently come to the headquarters building according to Rog's request. According to his speculation, Chris' father is more likely to arrange for the new Star Corps Centurion powerhouse, or directly mobilize heavy weapons to bomb the headquarters building. Although the headquarters building is an important landmark building, if it is really bombed, it's not particularly difficult to deal with the aftermath. As the chairman of the military council, Chris' father is fully capable of completely solving the problems after the headquarters building is bombed. Your Excellency Rog, do you really think that His Excellency will come? In order to break the silence in the reception room, the commander took the opportunity to ask the question in his heart. He will definitely come. Rog answered decisively. Why? Can you tell me why you're so sure? The commanding officer still couldn't understand why Chris's father would come here personally. First of all, his son's body is here. Unless he didn't want to leave his son's corpse intact, he would definitely come in person. Secondly, after knowing that I am the murderer of his son, he will definitely want to see me. Even if he wanted to avenge his son, he would first come to see me, the person who killed his son. Finally, he was the president of the Army Council. For a person in his position, if he didn't even have the courage to meet the person who killed his son after his son's death, he would be criticized for the rest of his life. To put it simply, he can't afford to lose face like this, so he will definitely come in person. Since he had nothing else to do, Rog patiently explained why he was so sure that Chris' father would come in person. Although Rog had thoroughly explained the reason, the commander sitting on the sofa opposite him still didn't quite believe it. Not risking one's life was a common characteristic of almost every superior. Chris' father was the president of the Army Council, so it was impossible that he didn't understand this principle. If he were Chris' father, he would definitely not come in person. Therefore, the commander continued, I still think that His Excellency won't come. If it were me, I wouldn't come either. This is why you are only the commander of the guards in the headquarters building, and he is the president of the Army Council. Rog glanced at the commander and said calmly. Killing someone's heart, this was a blatant killing of someone's heart. If it wasn't Rog who said this, but someone else, the commander would definitely use his own actions to tell that person what trouble comes from the mouth meant. Although he was mercilessly stabbed by Rog, the commander didn't do anything in the end. However, what he was thinking now was, just wait, I want to see what kind of expression you will show when His Excellency doesn't appear. Time slowly passed, and just when the commander couldn't help but remind Rog that half an hour had passed, the door of the reception room was suddenly pushed open. The one who pushed open the door was a tall warrior wearing armor and the Nova Corps uniform. When this warrior, who was over 2 meters tall, pushed open the door of the reception room, Chris' father, the president of the Nova Corps Army Council, Morgan Gardner, walked in with a dignified aura around him. "Sir President." The moment Morgan Gardner entered the reception room, the commander sitting on the sofa immediately stood up and gave Morgan Gardner a Nova Corps military salute. Morgan Gardner didn't react at all to the commander's salute. He went straight to the sofa and looked down at Chris' corpse. "You, get out." After staring at Chris' corpse for more than 10 seconds, the president, who was exuding a dignified aura from head to toe, said expressionlessly. Although he didn't say who went out, he didn't even look at the commander. However, the moment he finished speaking, the commander left the reception room without looking back and closed the door on his way out. "I came out alive, I finally came out alive." The moment he closed the door, the commander's heart was filled with a sense of joy, as if he had just escaped death. However, this joy quickly disappeared because he immediately realized that his troubles weren't over yet. The conversation between them won't end so soon. "I have to leave Xander immediately, I have to leave now." However, he had only taken a few steps when the tall warrior who had pushed open the door blocked his way. "Why did you kill Chris? Just because he wanted to take revenge on you and take away your equipment?" President Morgan Gardner sat in the commander's seat and asked Rog with a blank expression. "You already know the reason, so why ask me?" Rog didn't see any sadness on Morgan Gardner's face, as if Chris, who was killed by him, wasn't his son at all. "Just because of that, you killed him. You killed my only son, Morgan Gardner. Aren't you a little too overbearing?" Hearing Morgan Gardner's emotionless words, Rog suddenly laughed. "Overbearing? You actually think I'm overbearing? Ha 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 ha, interesting, really interesting." Rog laughed wildly as if he heard the funniest joke in the world. At the same time, he looked at Morgan Gardner as if he was looking at an idiot. Are you provoking me?" As the president of the military council, Morgan Gardner could control his emotions very well, making it impossible for others to guess his true thoughts from his expression. However, for some reason, when he heard Rog's laughter, especially when he saw him looking at an idiot, Morgan Gardner showed signs of being unable to control his anger. "I originally thought that since you could become the president, you would at least be a little better than that idiot Chris. But now I realize that I guessed wrong, completely wrong. Chris being such an idiot is completely because he inherited your IQ." Rog sighed helplessly, and continued to say to Morgan Gardner, who was getting more and more angry, "Didn't you think I was too overbearing? Then I'll let you see what true overbearing is." As soon as his voice fell, the explosive pistol on the table suddenly appeared in Rog's hand, and 3 green explosive bullets instantly flew towards Morgan Gardner. Unlike Chris, who didn't have any actual combat strength, although Morgan Gardner had personally taken action many times, but before he entered the civil ranks of the new Star Corps, he was still a centurion through and through. A faint golden light suddenly erupted from Morgan Gardner's body, and the 3 explosive bullets aimed at his head and heart were instantly deflected. However, at the moment when the explosive bullets were deflected, a silver-white arc suddenly streaked across Morgan Gardner's right arm, cutting off his entire right hand. Lightning release, thunderbolt sword slash. The golden light of new star energy was still shining, but the flash of silver-white lightning was not obstructed, and directly streaked across Morgan Gardner's right hand. The tachi made of lightning dissipated, and bright red blood spurted out from Morgan Gardner's severed right arm. Unlike Chris, who liked to yell after being injured, Morgan Gardner's ability to endure pain was clearly several levels higher. However, Morgan Gardner never thought that Rog would actually dare to attack him, and in such a fierce manner. At this moment, Morgan Gardner finally understood why Rog dared to kill Chris, and why he still stayed in the headquarters to wait for his arrival after killing him. Chris had never participated in any kind of battle, so Chris didn't know that in this world, there was a terrifying existence who had completely integrated madness into their instincts. But Morgan Gardner had seen such a person who he would never forget after seeing him. That person was previously called the Mad Titan. And now, people were more willing to call him the Emperor of the Universe. Morgan Gardner had once seen this kind of madness from Thanos, and now, he saw it again from Rog. Your Excellency, killing an idiot like Chris is not overbearing. Killing your son, and cutting off the hand you couldn't control because of your greed, that is overbearing. Chapter 398. Other than Rog and Chairman Morgan Gardner, no one knew what they were talking about in the reception room. However, 5 minutes after entering the reception room, Chairman Morgan Gardner walked out of the reception room with an expressionless face. Although Morgan Gardner didn't say anything, when he came out, everyone's attention was focused on his injured arm. It was a clean cut that looked like it was cut by a laser, a cut that was still flowing with bright red blood. Morgan Gardner didn't care about other people's gazes and handed his right hand that was held in his left hand to the tall soldier who opened the door. Then, without saying a word, as if nothing had happened, he left the building with his personal guards. Until Morgan Gardner and his guards completely disappeared around the corner of the corridor, the guard commander of the building finally regained a bit of his rationality. Am I hallucinating? The chairman's right hand was cut off. Rog actually cut off the chairman's right hand? The scene of Morgan Gardner holding a broken hand was completely beyond the commander's comprehension. He couldn't understand why Rog dared to cut off Morgan Gardner's right hand, and why Morgan Gardner was expressionless. What happened to this world? The commander, whose mind was filled with the scene of Morgan Gardner's broken hand, began to doubt whether this world was still the world he was familiar with. Just when the commander and the other guards were confused and shocked, Rog also walked out of the reception room as if nothing had happened. Then, without looking back, he left the New Star Army's headquarters building. Looking at Rog's leaving figure, the commander suddenly remembered the sentence Rog said to him before, the sentence that killed people. This is why you're only the commander of the headquarters building's guards, and he's the chairman of the council. A conflict that was originally enough to cause a war between Rog and the New Star Army ended just like that, in a way that no one knew about. After leaving the New Star Army's headquarters building, Rog directly used the portal magic and returned to the suite of the Bright Starry Sky Hotel and put on the dark game helmet again. Rog's invasion of the headquarters building and triggering the black invasion alarm came to an end in a quiet and irresistible way. The New Star Army didn't find trouble with Rog because of what happened in the headquarters building, and he never went to the headquarters building again. 2 days later, Rog received the reward that originally belonged to him in an armory near the New Star Army's headquarters building. At the same time, he also took away a compensation gift that wasn't similar to this reward. At the moment of receiving the reward, the commission status in the system also changed. 200 ninja coins commission reward was sent to Rog's account. Ninja coins not consumed, 610. Looking at his current unconsumed ninja coins, Rog returned to the hotel suite and directly used the portal magic, returning to Konoha's ninja village on Tatooine with Black, Pietro, and Rhodesi. You three go back to the headquarters first. I'm going to train here for a while. If there's anything urgent, you can let Hinata contact me. After that, Rog sent Black and the other two into the portal built by the Black Boulder. When the black liquid that built the portal resolidified into a boulder, Rog used quantum transmission to go to the Hokage building that he had never been to before and came to the training room in the basement of the building. What happened in the New Star Army's headquarters building was just a small episode outside the plan for him. Although this episode caused him to return to Tatooine 2 days late, in general, this episode didn't cause him too much trouble. He got the promised reward, and the guy who tried to renege on the debt also received the punishment he deserved, and he also got the corresponding compensation. Except for affecting his mood and wasting 2 days of unnecessary time, he didn't lose much. After coming to the huge training room built under the Hokage building, Rog opened the system's exchange page and quickly browsed it. What happened in the New Star Army's headquarters building was just a small episode for him. However, what happened in the Sokka planet's arena was a big problem for him. When he fought with Thanos, he saw the terrifying body of Thanos that was so strong that it was completely unreasonable. It's a body stronger than Hulk, a body that can ignore most of his ninjutsu attacks. Except for the fact that he can't fly and can't use energy attacks, Thanos's body is perfect. In order to effectively take the initiative in the next battle against Thanos, Rog needs to add some extra cards for himself, a card that was not in his current training plan. The taijutsu in Naruto can be roughly divided into 2 categories, Steel Fist and Soft Fist. Steel Fist is mainly a direct attack that causes the opponent to fracture or cause other trauma. Most of the ninjas, including the taijutsu used by Rogue before, belong to the category of Steel Fist. However, in the face of Thanos' strong physique, the effect of Steel Fist is greatly weakened. Even if Rogue has sage body and monstrous strength, the Steel Fist taijutsu he used can't cause too much damage to Thanos. Since Steel Fist is restrained, it's time to put the practice of Soft Fist on the agenda. To be honest, Luo Gu did not like Gentle Fist, a fist technique that looked soft and weak. He doesn't doubt the power of Soft Fist. After all, when Soft Fist is developed to the extreme, it may become an ultimate taijutsu. It's just that compared to destroying the enemy's internal organs and meridians, he still prefers to destroy the enemy's body. Simple, violent, and effective. It didn't take long for Rogue to find the Soft Fist he wanted in the system's exchange page. Hyuga Soft Fist, exchange price, 100 ninja coins. This is a collection of Hyuga clan's basic Soft Fist, 8 trigrams 64 palms, 8 trigrams palm, 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 mountain break strike, etc. It also includes some of the Hyuga clan's practice notes. The exchange price is not expensive, which is within Rogue's expectations. So he didn't hesitate and directly chose to exchange. The exchange icon symbolizing Hyuga clan's Soft Fist suddenly disappeared. At the same time, the practice information of Hyuga's Soft Fist appeared in Rogue's mind out of thin air. Soft Fist is in his hand, but to fully exert the power of Soft Fist, he still needs a pair of special eyes, a pair of eyes that can let him see the enemy's meridians. Byakugan, exchange price, 200 ninja coins. Chapter 399. Byakugan, the Kekkei Genkai of the Hyuga clan, originated from the Otsutsuki clan. Like Sharingan, Byakugan is also one of the 3 dojutsu. In terms of development potential, Byakugan is not much worse than Sharingan. Sharingan can evolve into Manjiki Sharingan, Eternal Manjiki Sharingan, and Rinnegan. And Byakugan can also evolve into Tenseigan. The true power of Byakugan is not as weak as people think. The reason why Byakugan is not as good as Sharingan is purely because the Hyuga clan is too weak. The same Byakugan, but in the Otsutsuki clan, one is more powerful than the other, and one is more abnormal than the other. If the Hyuga clan can also be like the Uchiha clan, where there is a monster every 3 to 5 days, Byakugan can also shine like Sharingan. Rogue will not hesitate to exchange for the Hyuga clan's Gentle Fist. But when he exchanged for Byakugan, he hesitated. Although the exchange icon in the system clearly proves that he can exchange for Byakugan, he still can't make up his mind. Under normal circumstances, the icon that can't be exchanged will become dim black. For example, after he exchanged for the Sage mode of the Shikatsu Forest, the exchange icons of Ryuchi Cave and Mount Myaboku became black and gray. However, Byakugan is not the Sage mode or Ninjutsu Genjutsu. Byakugan is a Kekkei Genkai that will change his physique. Rogue now has the Uchiha clan's Sharingan, and he has also practiced Manjiki Sharingan to the level of Manjiki Sharingan. So the problem is, although the system does not prevent him from exchanging for Byakugan, after exchanging for Byakugan, whether his Manjiki Sharingan will still exist or not becomes a problem. Unlike his other transmigrating counterparts who were kind and considerate and would occasionally act as life mentors, his Goldfinger system was completely mute. Not to mention chatting to relieve boredom, even some basic user questions, his system is too lazy to explain. At this time, if his system can give some slightly more reliable explanation, he won't have to struggle for so long. To exchange or not to exchange, this is the problem. If he does, he may lose the Manjiki Sharingan, which has become one of his main combat powers. If he didn't exchange for it, he wouldn't be able to display the true power of the Gentle Fist. The exchange price of 200 ninja coins has become the most insignificant existence at this time. After thinking about it seriously for more than 10 minutes and preparing for the worst, Rogue finally made the decision to exchange for the Supercilious Eye. Although this decision seemed very rash, he had already considered all his options. If he exchanged for the Byakugan, his Mangekyo Sharingan would disappear. So, he will completely give up the idea of practicing Gentle Fist and Byakugan and use the remaining 300 ninja coins to exchange for the Sharingan. Then, he repeated the process of the kaleidoscope's eye-opening that he had done once before. Walter was in Konoha, and he had already opened his eyes with the Mangekyo once. It wouldn't be difficult for him to do it again. If it really came to this point, it would also answer a question that he still didn't know the answer to. That is, can the Sharingan he exchanged in the system evolve into an original Mangekyo pattern that he has never seen before? If with the help of Walter, the evolved Mangekyo is still the same, then according to his previous experience, he will plunder Gordon's quantum transmission and Johnny's hellfire again. If the evolved Mangekyo is completely different from the current ability and pattern, then he will practice the new ability again. Speaking of which, he is really looking forward to what kind of Mangekyo ability he will get. Although Tsukuyomi and Vientiane are very good, men will always have some ideas of liking the new and getting tired of the old. After suppressing the nervousness and excitement in his heart, Rog pressed the exchange icon representing the Byakugan. Then, the exchange icon representing the Byakugan disappeared, and his unconsumed ninja coins dropped to 310. Just when Rog was all mentally prepared and waiting for the Byakugan to appear, he didn't get anything. What's going on? Is the system down? Or the ninja coins were swallowed? For a while, Rog was a little stunned. What the hell? Where's my Byakugan? Where's my ninja coins? This is not scientific. Rog, who has dealt with the system many times, is now completely confused. Chakra normal, Senni normal, Mangekyo Sharingan normal, Kyubi normal, Mana normal. Rog seriously and carefully perceived his current state from top to bottom. Then, he didn't find anything strange. Am I really so unlucky? I was ready to lose Mangekyo Sharingan again, and the result is this? Rog suddenly didn't know what to say. According to the exchange icon given by the system and his own speculation, Byakugan and Sharingan may appear in the same person. Otsutsuki Kagaya and Otsutsuki Momoshiki all have Byakugan and Rinnegan at the same time. Since Byakugan and Rinnegan can appear in the same person, then the Rinnegan level Sharingan should also be able to coexist with Byakugan. Although this is just a speculation, it is a very reliable speculation. At least in Rog's view, this is the case. If there is any difference between him and Otsutsuki Kagaya and Otsutsuki Momoshiki, it is only that he is not a member of the Otsutsuki clan, and he only has 2 eyes. Forget it, don't think about it, just think of it as the new Star Supreme's commission for free. After adjusting his current lost mentality, Rog used quantum transmission and directly teleported from the practice room to the bathroom of the Hokage's mansion. Right now, he no longer had any interest in practicing the Gentle Fist. At least, he didn't have any interest in it now. Without Byakugan, Gentle Fist can't exert its full power at all. At most, it can be used to deal with enemies who are not as strong as him. Because of his bad mood, Rog soaked in hot water for half an hour in the bathroom, then wrapped in a bath towel and came to the bathroom's more than 2 meters long mirror. Speaking of which, it seems that he hasn't seen his original black eyes for a long time. Looking at the blood-red eyes in the mirror, Rog suddenly missed his original black eyes. So, he closed his 3-tomo Sharingan that is open 24 hours a day. Just when he thought he was about to see his black eyes, he saw an unbelievable scene in the mirror. What the hell? Where are my black eyes? At this time, what appeared in front of him was not the black eyes in his memory, but the opposite white eyes. Chapter 400. Is this Byakugan? Looking at his eyes that have completely turned white, Rog couldn't react for a while. Although, in terms of color, his eyes are now Byakugan. But not only did he not feel any improvement in vision, but because he turned off the 3-tomo Sharingan, he felt that his vision has decreased a lot. After a few seconds of doubt, he found out what the problem is. Like Sharingan, Byakugan needs to be opened before it can exert its power. But it's not the same as Sharingan. After opening Byakugan, the original color of the iris will not change, but the blue veins next to the eyes will burst. Byakugan, open. After finding the way to open Byakugan in his mind, Rog silently said in his heart, and a few blue veins suddenly burst on the side of his eyes. With the opening of Byakugan, the system's introduction and information about Byakugan finally emerged in his mind. The basic abilities of Sharingan can be divided into observation, replication, and hypnosis. As one of the three major dojutsu, Byakugan also has three basic abilities: telescopic vision, X-ray, and insight. Telescopic vision, as the name suggests, is to improve the eyesight of the eyes. Even if Rog has just opened Byakugan, his telescopic vision has reached a radius of 1 kilometer. In the state of opening Byakugan, as long as he wants, he can clearly see anything within a radius of 1 kilometer. Of course, with the continuous improvement of Byakugan's ability, the limit of telescopic vision will continue to increase. In addition to telescopic vision, Byakugan's X-ray and insight ability will continue to improve due to cultivation. Among the two abilities of X-ray and insight, Rog's personal favorite is X-ray. Byakugan's X-ray ability allows him to easily see through objects and enemies. Clothes, walls, metal, and other obstacles will be transparent under Byakugan's X-ray. More importantly, Byakugan can see the meridians, acupoints, bones, and chakra flow in the target's body. Just like the replication ability of Sharingan, the system has also made some adjustments to Byakugan's X-ray ability, changing the ability to see through the target's chakra flow to see through the target's energy flow, not just limited to chakra. Rog wasn't surprised by the system's adjustment to supercilious eye. Because until now, he was the only one in this world who possessed chakra. Byakugan's ability to see through things was the key to unleashing the power of Gentle Fist. Only with his X-ray vision could Rog accurately penetrate the enemy's body with his chakra, thereby destroying the enemy's meridian system, or the energy circulation route, thereby achieving the effect of destroying the enemy from the inside. As for the Byakugan's insight vision, it allowed him to have a 360-degree field of vision without any blind spots, unlike normal humans who could only have a horizontal field of vision of 188 degrees at most. Other than the three basic abilities of vision, clairvoyance, and insight, with the Byakugan, he could also slightly increase his control over chakra, allowing him to release chakra from all the acupoints in his body at the same time, allowing him to perform high-level physical skills such as 8 trigrams palm, revolving heaven. However, this did not mean that possessing the Byakugan would allow one to release chakra from all the acupoints in one's body. Whether or not one could do this depended on the user's control over chakra as well as his strength. If it was a ninja with no strength, even if he had the Byakugan, he wouldn't be able to release chakra from all the acupoints in his body. After quickly going through the information of Byakugan in his mind, Rog began to use his Byakugan ability for the first time. The first thing he used was, of course, his most valued clairvoyance ability. When the clairvoyance ability of Byakugan was activated, the mirror in front of Rog instantly became transparent like glass, even the wall behind the mirror was the same. Under the clairvoyance of Byakugan, Rog could easily see through any obstacles in front of him. Whether it was metal, walls, or anything else, nothing could block his sight. In the case of clairvoyance, Rog also used the clairvoyance ability of Byakugan, allowing his clairvoyance to be improved qualitatively. With the combination of clairvoyance and clairvoyance, he could clearly see the names of the books placed on the bookshelves of the Hokage's office hundreds of meters away in the bathroom of the Hokage's residence. After adapting to the new visual experience of combining clairvoyance and clairvoyance, Rog used the third ability of Byakugan, the clairvoyance ability. With the integration of clairvoyance, Rog's perspective was no longer limited to what was in front of him, but became a 360-degree view without any blind spots. After experiencing the new visual experience brought about by Byakugan, Rog turned his gaze back to himself, instantly seeing through his body and examining the internal situation of his body. The light blue ball burning like a flame was his own chakra. And the blood-red ball was the half-kyubi sealed in his body, yang kyubi. In addition, he also saw a small ball of rainbow-like gorgeous light in his right eye, as well as an orange-red flame. The rainbow-like brilliance was the quantum teleportation arcana that he had plundered from Gordon. The orange-red flame was the hellfire that he plundered from Ghost Rider Johnny. Not only that, he also saw a golden light in his body, which was the magic he got from learning magic in Kamartage. After carefully examining his physical condition, Rog closed the Byakugan, and the bulging blue veins around his eyes returned to normal. With the closing of Byakugan, the clairvoyance, and clairvoyance also disappeared. The appearance of Byakugan did not change the Sharingan, but replaced his original black eyes. Even if he doesn't open Byakugan and Sharingan, his black eyes won't appear again. After a few seconds of sighing, Rog found a new set of clothes from the closet in the bedroom. After dressing up, he used quantum transmission to return to the office in the Hokage building, then turned on the computer and quickly typed. It didn't take long for him to type out all the cultivation methods of the Hashiman Tanku in his mind without missing a word. After checking it again, he silently deleted the cultivation methods of the last 3 gates, and then said, Hinata, use Hulk as the test target, replace chakra with gamma energy or Hulk's vitality, and retest the possibility of cultivating the Hashiman Tanku, and make relevant adjustments. Although Rog hasn't returned to Earth yet, he didn't forget what he promised Hulk. In addition, start a new research project. Project topic, Chakra Energy Transplant Plan. The test target is also Hulk. Chapter 401. Rog can do the research and development of ninjutsu by himself. But adjusting the Hashiman Tanku to make it suitable for people without chakra is not something he can handle alone. Not to mention the various troubles encountered in the process of testing and adjustment, just the amount of data needed in the test and adjustment is not something he can calculate by himself. Although ninjutsu is not a science, sometimes, it has to pay attention to scientific laws. Finding and calculating the laws is the strength of a super artificial intelligence like Hinata. Roger. When Roger finished speaking, Hinata's virtual image appeared in front of him and said softly to him, Don't worry, Mr. Roger. Although this Hinata in Konoha's hidden village is not Hinata herself, her calculation ability is not worse than Hinata herself in Konoha's intelligence agency headquarters. After all, compared with Hinata herself who needs to deal with a lot of tedious things in Konoha's intelligence agency, the workload of this Hinata is relatively less. After instructing Hinata, Rog took out a piece of white paper from the drawer of his desk and began to summarize his next training plan. The first thing to do is to practice Byakugan and Gentle Fist, which are one of his trump cards in the future when facing enemies like Thanos who have a strong body. So, he wrote the words Byakugan and Gentle Fist on the white paper and added a number in front of them. In addition to Byakugan and Gentle Fist, Sharingan and Sage Body are also the focus of his training plan this time. Until now, his Susanoo has not completed the 3rd form with armor, so Sharingan still needs to be further improved. As for Sage Body, this directly affects his physical strength, speed, endurance, recovery, and other basic attributes. It is also a link that cannot be ignored. And Sage Body is also the key to evolving Manjiki Sharingan into Rinnegan in the future. Under normal circumstances, he needs to evolve his Manjiki Sharingan into Eternal Manjiki Sharingan, and then evolve it into Rinnegan through the fusion of Hashirama's cells. This is the method used by Uchiha Madara. Although this method is a reliable way to improve, for Rog, this method has innate and irreparable defects. He doesn't have a brother in this world, let alone a brother who has the Manjiki Sharingan. Therefore, he had no way of upgrading his kaleidoscope to the level of Eternal Kaleidoscope. Since he can't have the Eternal Manjiki Sharingan, one of the prerequisites for the Rinnegan, he can only start with the cells of Hashirama. Uchiha Madara's Rinnegan evolved from the Eternal Manjiki Sharingan and the transplantation of Hashirama's cells. And Roger intends to take a different path in the details, but the principle is the same, the path of Rinnegan. He wants to use his Manjiki Sharingan and Hashirama's Sage Body to evolve his own Rinnegan. Although he can't have the Eternal Manjiki Sharingan like Madara, he can have Hashirama's cells that are stronger than Hashirama's. In this way, he can offset the shortcomings of the Sharingan and evolve his own Rinnegan. Of course, this was only a theoretical evolution process. In the specific process of opening the eye, there would definitely be some small problems in other aspects. Thus, he wrote down the second content of his cultivation plan on the white paper. Number 2, Sharingan plus Sage Body. Then he drew an equal sign behind it, and wrote the 3 words, Rinnegan. After writing the 3 words Rinnegan, he then wrote down the third content. Number 3, Kyubi Resonance. Rog's current resonance with Kyubi is 4, which means that he can now use Kyubi's chakra to 4 tails at most. Although Yambi's state is not low, it is still a long way from the Kyubi mode he wants. Even if it's an incomplete QB mode, he estimates that he must at least reach the level of resonance 7 or 8. As for the complete QB mode, of course, he must reach the highest level of resonance 9. Byakugan and Gentle Fist, Sharingan and Sage Body, and QB resonance are all the contents of his next cultivation plan. As for ninjutsu, genjutsu, and taijutsu, they are not in his cultivation plan for the time being. The battle with Thanos in the Sokka planet arena made him fully aware of the gap between him and Thanos in terms of basic physical fitness. This also once again proved that the body of the Earthlings is really fragile. Not to mention that compared with Thanos, even the ordinary Asgard people have a strong body that is far more powerful than the Earthlings. After formulating a cultivation plan, Rog immediately entered this boring cultivation day. However, he didn't expect that just as he was working hard in Konoha, an invasion happened on the Earth that caught most organizations and forces by surprise. The suburbs of New York, the headquarters of the Avengers. Hasn't Rog come back yet? It's been half a year. Is he planning to travel the whole universe? Tony, who was wearing an expensive suit, sat on a chair and impatiently asked Natasha, who was sitting opposite him. We have contacted the Konoha intelligence agency several times, and Rog's personal assistant Hinata gave us the same reply every time, saying that she would help us pass on the message to Rog. Compared with the slightly irritated Tawny, Natasha, who was wearing casual clothes, was much calmer and answered in a calm tone. Pass on the message? His artificial intelligence assistant gave us such an answer. Does she know what's going on outside? Tawny knows exactly what Hinata is, because to some extent, he is Hinata's father. It's just that when she was in his hands, Hinata was not called Hinata, but Sunday. I think she should be very clear. After all, in recent months, the people of the Konoha intelligence agency have been acting outside. Natasha was still as calm as ever. Damn it. If I knew this, I wouldn't have given him Sunday. Just as Tawny was complaining, Captain America and Dr. Banner walked into his office and put an energy gun that did not belong to Earth technology on the desk. I have confirmed with Dr. Banner that this energy pistol is not Hydra's energy weapon, nor is it a replica made by other organizations that imitate Chidori weapons. This is an individual weapon made by another civilization, an alien civilization that is not inferior to Chidori. As he spoke, Captain America took off his helmet, revealing a tired face. Chapter 402. Washington, Konoha Intelligence Agency Headquarters. When Rogers and Dr. Banner came to Tawny's office with energy pistols that didn't belong to Earth, Konoha's intelligence agency was also holding a secret meeting attended by a few people. Frank the Punisher, Bronsky the Abomination, Daisy the Shockwave, Pietro the Quicksilver, Walter the Scarlet Witch and other well-known superheroes in Konoha gathered in the highest-level conference room of the headquarters building at this time. Unlike the relaxed atmosphere of the headquarters in the past, at this time, a dignified look appeared on the faces of the Punishers and others, and an oppressive silence enveloped the entire conference room. We can't let things get worse. I suggest contacting Rog immediately. We need him now. The first to speak was Daisy. She said with a gloomy face, staring at the empty seat at the top of the long conference table. To be precise, she was looking at the virtual three-dimensional projection standing next to this seat. The main seat at the top of the conference table belongs to Rog. Although he hasn't returned to Earth for more than half a year, even so, no one dares to sit in this seat that belongs to the director of Konoha's intelligence agency, and only belongs to Rog. Hokage-sama is cultivating in Konoha's hidden village. I have reported the current situation to Hokage-sama and obtained full authorization from Hokage-sama. The virtual three-dimensional projection next to Rog's seat is none other than his personal artificial intelligence assistant, Hinata. You are just an artificial intelligence. You are not qualified to make decisions for Rog. Daisy, who has rarely been angry, showed a violent temper that was completely different from the past and said loudly to Hinata. I have obtained full authorization from Hokage-sama. If you have any questions, you can wait until Hokage-sama returns to the headquarters and confirm with Hokage-sama in person. Before that, all the affairs of the headquarters will be handled by me. I have made a complete calculation of your proposals, and the highest success rate is less than 30%. Konoha's intelligence agency will continue to maintain the original action plan. although Hinata's electronic voice is no different from a real human voice. But at this time, her words made people feel the innate cold-blooded and ruthless machine creation. Since Sama has given Hinata full authorization, we should act according to the previous established plan. If Konoha's strength is damaged because of our actions, Sama will not be happy when he comes back. When Daisy's anger was about to erupt like a volcano, the Punisher on the left spoke. As the existence that followed for the longest time, the Punishers had a very high status in Konoha's headquarters. Even Peter and Walter, who did not have a clear superior-subordinate relationship with would show him great respect when they saw him. Although the Punisher's strength is far inferior to Abomination, Daisy, Pietro, and the others, in Konoha's headquarters, he is the highest existence under In this regard, even Hinata couldn't compare to the Punisher. Actually, I think you're a little too nervous, Daisy. Although the outside environment is indeed a bit bad, in general, it doesn't have much impact on our Konoha intelligence agency. And those extraterrestrial bastards won't dare to have ideas about us. After the Punisher finished speaking, Quicksilver Pietro also expressed his opinion. But as soon as he finished speaking, Walter, sitting next to him, gave him a look that told him to shut up. Forget it, you didn't hear anything. Although Pietro was Walter's brother, in front of Walter, he didn't have the dignity an older brother should have. Walter was the one who had the final say between the two. I support Daisy's plan. Although the success rate is not high, we have the responsibility to help the victims. Wouldn't want to see us not help them. Let's vote, one person, one vote. Those who support Daisy's plan can raise their hands now. Walter expressed her opinion and took the lead in raising her right hand. Although in Konoha's headquarters, Walter was the kind of person who didn't express her own opinions and didn't even have much interest in field operations. But strangely, her status in Konoha's headquarters was not much lower than the Punisher's. Although Walter didn't explicitly deny Hinata's opinion, her action of raising her hand clearly expressed her true thoughts. As Walter raised her hand, Daisy and Pietro also raised their hands. Later, Dr. Lizard Connors and Red Tank also raised their right hands. The Punisher looked at everyone who raised their hands, thought seriously, and finally didn't raise his hand. Unlike others, in addition to being a member of Konoha's intelligence agency, he also has a psychic contract with He can't violate opinion. Although Hinata is now making decisions on behalf of as long as Hinata has authorization, he won't violate Hinata's orders. The Punisher didn't raise his hand, and Abomination certainly didn't raise his hand. In addition to the two of them, Black and Moonlight Stone also didn't raise their hands. There were a total of 11 people in the conference room, and the situation suddenly became 5-5. For a while, everyone's eyes were on Venom. What should we do? Which side do we support? Eddie, who was completely wrapped in Venom, whispered to Venom. Venom didn't come alone, his host Eddie also came with him. Unfortunately, as Venom's host, Eddie doesn't have any right to vote. If Eddie wasn't Venom's host, he wouldn't even be qualified to appear in this conference room. Don't look at me like that, I will only listen to Rog's arrangements. Since Rog has delegated power to Hinata, then I will listen to Hinata's arrangements. Venom spat out his long, red tongue and said casually. 6-5, Daisy's plan failed by one vote. The scene that happened in Konoha's intelligence agency headquarters was quickly learned by Rog. Although he hasn't returned to Earth in the past 6 months, this doesn't mean that he knows nothing about what happened on Earth. Glancing at the surveillance video of the conference room that Hinata sent, Rog sighed helplessly. Walter is more popular than I thought. Let's not talk about Daisy and Pietro. They will definitely support Walter. But what I didn't expect was that Dr. Connors and Red Tank would also stand on Walter's side. At this time, Rog wasn't in the practice room, but in the office of the Hokage building. After watching the surveillance video, he stood up from the chair and came to the window, looking at the sun that was about to set in the distance. Forget it, let's go back first. If I let the Skrull people continue to play, I don't know what the consequences will be. It's time for this farce to end. Chapter 403. The big event that gave Tawny and other Avengers headaches and caused Konoha to be divided, to some extent, is not a particularly serious matter. At least in the eyes of Rog, who has the aura of a prophet, this big event is not serious. Simply put, the big event that happened on Earth now is the legendary secret invasion of the Skrulls. As for why the secret invasion of the Skrulls suddenly broke out at this time, because there is still not enough information, Rog is not particularly clear for the time being. However, there was one thing he was sure of. The evil version of superheroes that appeared on Earth was a smokescreen created by the Skrulls using their own racial abilities and advanced technology that surpassed Earth's civilization. At this point, it was necessary to mention what had happened on Earth during the past 6 months that Rog had been cultivating. After Rog sent Dr. Banner, who was kidnapped by the rope grass slavers, back to Earth, Dr. Banner resumed his superhero career as Hulk to fight evil and save the world and people. Hulk's heroic actions, in the eyes of the general public, were not a problem because he did this before. But no one thought that shortly after Hulk resumed his heroic actions, Hulk's reputation plummeted at a speed visible to the naked eye. Now, Hulk is no longer regarded as a superhero, but as a violent vigilante who ignores the law. The reason for such a huge reversal in reputation is due to one of Hulk's actions. It was a normal fire rescue activity. Hulk came to the scene of the fire and rescued ordinary people trapped in the sea of fire. If one only looked at the results, this operation was very normal. After all, Hulk had successfully rescued the victims of the disaster. But the problem was that while rescuing the victims, the careless Hulk accidentally overturned the burning building. Then, the collapsed building killed the firefighters on the scene, as well as a large group of reporters on the scene. If this kind of accident only happened once, people's reputation for Hulk would not have deteriorated so badly. After all, this was just an uncontrollable accident. However, ever since this accident happened, news of Hulk harming innocent people and his subsequent heroic actions kept appearing. Not only was Hulk's action like this, even Iron Man and Captain America, the face of the Avengers, were the same. They worked hard to uphold justice and save people's lives, but their righteous actions took away the lives of more innocent people. For example, when Iron Man organized the bank robbers, the missile fired accidentally detonated a nearby oil tanker. Another example is when Captain America attacked the black market weapons dealer, the bomb at the scene killed other residents around him. On the surface, these heroic actions seemed to be upholding justice, but they took away the lives of innocent people again and again. And this kind of incident of innocent people being injured in action didn't only happen to famous hero teams such as Konoha and the Avengers. Even the less famous vigilante teams, such as the Defender League, that just appeared in Hell's Kitchen, have also had similar accidents. As accidents continued to happen and certain people added fuel to the fire, the profession of superhero suddenly fell to the level of a rat crossing the street. Now, there were protests against superheroes almost every day, asking the government to regulate these superheroes with extraordinary abilities. There were even many government members who took advantage of the situation to propose a superhero registration bill, requiring every superhero to register their identity and accept government jurisdiction. This was not the first time the Avengers had encountered this kind of opposition from the public. The previous Seoul incident caused by Ultron had already caused the Avengers to experience a similar protest. However, this protest was completely different from before. Because these accidents that caused the deaths of innocent people were not done by hero teams such as the Avengers and Konoha. After Hulk's first accident, the Avengers found that something was wrong. At that time, Dr. Banner was conducting research in the Avengers headquarters. It was impossible for him to appear at the scene of the fire to rescue the trapped people, let alone collapse the building and kill the firefighters and reporters at the scene. Similarly, Konoha also found that something was wrong with the accidents caused by the impersonation of Konoha's heroes. Although the Avengers and Konoha had made a public explanation of this, it was a pity that the people did not believe the evidence they provided. Instead, they thought that this was fake evidence in order to escape responsibility. The protests and distrust of the people were only one aspect. What was even more troublesome was that the hero teams represented by the Avengers and Konoha were protested and targeted at the official level. Now, a large number of protesting people gathered around the headquarters of the Avengers and Konoha headquarters, as well as military forces arranged by the military. People protested, the government targeted, and these superheroes on Earth suddenly became the most unpopular existence. Rog looked at the various evidence and information sent by Hinata and saw what was going on at a glance. Using high-tech and their own transformation ability, the Skrulls transformed into superheroes on Earth and put the blame on the superheroes. At the same time, the Skrulls, who had long been hidden in the government, used the power of the government to further solidify this blame. The real superheroes were facing protests from the people and the government. And the fake superheroes of the Skrulls were constantly exacerbating this situation. For example, just a week ago, a Skrull disguised as Hulk suddenly broke into a protest site of thousands of people and killed them on live TV. The framing method of the Skrulls wasn't clever, it could even be said to be simple and crude. But in the face of their innate racial talent and the advanced technology of Earth, their actions achieved an unimaginable great effect. Although the framing method used by the Skrulls was somewhat crude, until now, the Avengers and Konoha have not confirmed their true identity. These Skrulls didn't confront the heroes of the Avengers and Konoha at all. The real heroes haven't appeared yet, but these fakes have already disappeared. Only Rog, who had the aura of a prophet, could see the truth of the matter at a glance. Although it wasn't quite the same as what he remembered, Rog was certain that this incident was caused by the secret invasion of the Skrulls. Chapter 404. Hinata, pull up all the information about the Skrull. Rog, who was standing in front of the huge window, said, then turned and sat back on the chair. Yes, Hokage-sama. In just 2 or 3 seconds, Hinata projected a holographic image of the Skrull's information in front of Rog. This information wasn't collected by Rog, nor by Konoha, but by the Golden Jack. Before the transformation, the Golden Jack was the main battleship of the Carey Empire. Although the Golden Jack doesn't participate in the space war anymore, the Carey Empire's database still exists. The Skrull was one of the main enemies of the Carey Empire, and there is a lot of information about them in the Golden Jack. It's also worth mentioning that in order to avoid losing the precious information in the battleship, Rog asked Hinata to make 2 copies of the Golden Jack and put them in the Konoha Intelligence Agency headquarters and the Konoha Hidden Village. According to the internal information of the Carey Empire, Logue knew that a few decades ago, the Carey Empire had conquered the mother planet of the Skrulls, turning the Skrulls into wanderers in the universe. The strength of the Skrull is now far from its heyday, but even so, the level of technology they have mastered is far beyond that of the Earth. According to the records, in ancient times, the Skrull were divided into 2 kinds. One is the mutant Skrull with the ability to transform at will, and the other is the eternal Skrull who can't transform but are very powerful. Later, the mutant Skrull destroyed the eternal Skrull and became the ancestors of the modern Skrull. This is the reason why the current Skrull have the ability to transform. Currently, the Skrull people all had the ability to shape-shift at will, but their shape-shifting abilities varied. The average Skrull can only change their appearance at will and disguise themselves as other races. Moreover, they don't need any auxiliary means to transform. As long as they look at the target, they can perfectly transform into the target, and even their voice will be the same. Ordinary Skrulls could only change their appearance, but the more powerful Skrulls could not only change their appearance, but also copy their target's memories. However, if you want to copy the target's memory, just looking at the target is not enough. You need to have a little contact with the target and obtain the target's DNA. According to the Carey's test, the Skrull's memory duplication is only a short-term memory duplication. It can't copy the target's complete life memory. The Skrull who can copy memories can be regarded as the elites of the Skrull race. However, this isn't the limit of the Skrull race. In the Skrull race, there is also the Super Skrull. The Super Skrull can not only copy the target's memory, but they can also copy the target's ability and make themselves the same as the target. As for how the Super Skrull's ability, the Carey Empire didn't study the theory of the Skrull's race. This was because even though the Carey Empire had conquered the Skrull homeworld, they didn't manage to capture a single Super Skrull. If they didn't see the perfect copy of the Super Skrull on the battlefield, the Carey would have suspected that the Super Skrull was an extinct existence like the Eternal Skrull. In Rog's memory, the Super Skrull's secret invasion was caused by the Super Skrull's disguise as the Avengers, causing a serious crisis of trust within the Avengers, which eventually led to the secret invasion of Earth. From the various superhero-related incidents reported by Hinata, ROG hasn't found any signs of the Super Skrull. However, this doesn't rule out the possibility that there are no Super Skrulls on Earth. Who knows if the Skrull used advanced technology to copy the superhero-related abilities, or if the Super Skrull among them copied the superhero-related abilities. After all, some things can be achieved with technology even without genetic mutation. ROG wasn't interested in the Skrull's ability to transform and copy memories, because his transformation and Sharingan's illusion can achieve similar effects. However, he was still very interested in the Super Skrull's ability to copy the target's abilities. One of the Sharingan's specialties is copying, but it can only copy the target's movements and abilities that don't involve genetic mutation. The Super Skrull's ability to copy has obviously broken through this limit. He doesn't know why, but ever since he met the Treant Groot in the Land of Nothingness, ROG began to understand Orochimaru more and more. Master all the truths of time, learn all the ninjutsu abilities. This kind of future is really tempting. However, understanding is one thing. ROG has no idea of developing into a Franken ninja like Orochimaru for the time being. The reason is simple, he has more cards in his hand than Orochimaru, and he hasn't reached the point where he needs to break through the taboo to gain power. Hinata, make a copy of the adjusted Hashimoto Tanku and send it to Konoha's headquarters. I should go back to fulfill my promise. As soon as his voice fell, a brilliant aurora-like light appeared around ROG's body. In the next second, his figure disappeared, and in an instant, he went from the office in the Hokage building to the transmission base connecting the Earth and the planet Tatooine. When the black boulder liquefied into a pool of petroleum-like liquid, ROG didn't even think about it and directly jumped in. In a few seconds, he returned from Konoha's hidden village to Konoha's intelligence headquarters, which he hasn't returned to for half a year. More than 10 minutes later, Tani in the headquarters received a call from ROG. I heard that you have been troubled by a group of aliens recently. This is not your style. As soon as ROG's voice sounded, Tani on the other end of the phone complained with dissatisfaction. You still have the nerve to say that. Do you think everyone is like you, throwing everything directly to their artificial intelligence assistant? ROG didn't have time to explain what is the reasonable use of the potential of artificial intelligence. Tani's voice sounded again. Don't talk nonsense. You should already know what is going on outside now. Let's meet, you choose the place, and I will decide the time. Tani seemed to give a fair choice. But in the next second, he said the time of the meeting. I choose to meet now, you choose a place. This was indeed Tony Stark's way of doing things. Chapter 405. Now? Okay, the location is at Konoha's intelligence agency headquarters. You haven't been here yet, so this time you can come and have a look. Tani wanted to tease ROG, and ROG certainly had to do something. Konoha's intelligence agency headquarters? No problem, in 5 minutes, you open a portal, and I'll bring people there right away. Tani froze for a moment, then replied calmly. Why do you want me to open a portal? It's you who wants to come over, not me who wants to pick you up. ROG wasn't surprised that Tani knew that he could open a portal. After all, Natasha and Scott have seen his portal, so it's normal for Tani to know about it. Okay, stop fooling around. Open a portal. You should know that recently, it's not suitable for us to leave the headquarters base openly. Tani on the other end of the phone finally stopped joking and said seriously. Okay, in 5 minutes, I'll wait for you in the conference room here, and you can bring people over. The entrance of the portal, I'll open it in the conference room where we met last time. After confirming the time to open the portal with Tani, ROG looked up at the holographic image of Hinata in front of him and said, Inform Daisy and Walter, let them all come to the big conference room on the 5th floor. Konoha is going to work with the Avengers for once. Okay, Hokage-sama. After receiving ROG's instructions, Hinata's holographic image quickly disappeared. 5 minutes later, in the conference room on the 5th floor of Konoha's headquarters building, ROG saw Tani and others who he hadn't seen for a long time. Tani, Rogers, Natasha, Banner, Patton, Rode, Sam, Illusion, Scott. This time, Tani brought all the main members of the Avengers. Of course, except for Thor, who is still dealing with government affairs in Asgard. What happened to your eyes? As soon as they met, Tani saw that ROG's eyes were no longer blood red and asked with concern. It's nothing. It's just a side effect of obtaining some kind of power. Rog did not explain the supercilious eye to Tawny. Not only did he explain it to Tawny, but he also explained it to Daisy and Walter. The more he explained, the more troublesome it would be to roll his eyes. Therefore, in order to avoid trouble, the best thing to do was to quell their curiosity from the beginning. Sit anywhere you like. After giving Tawny a gentle hug, Rog said to the side. In the large conference room, there was a large rectangular conference table that could seat more than 20 people. Rog wanted to learn from King Arthur and put a big round table here to symbolize equality, but under Hinata's suggestion, he finally gave up the idea. Although the Konoha Intelligence Agency is not the real Konoha, it still needs a clear hierarchy. Blindly pursuing the so-called equality will only weaken the power of the Konoha Intelligence Agency. This was Hinata's suggestion after learning a lot about organizational structure. The main seat at the top of the conference table was, of course, Rog's seat. Tawny sat next to Rog on the right, and Frank the Punisher sat opposite him on the left. When Tawny sat down, Rogers and the others also sat down, and then looked at the people of Konoha without saying a word. Since everyone is here, let's start. Hinata, show us the information of the scrolls. As soon as Rog finished speaking, the light in the conference room dimmed a bit. Then, a virtual holographic projection screen appeared in front of everyone. This is an alien race called Skrull, with a long history and advanced technology. However, their mother planet was destroyed by another space civilization, the Carey Empire, and now they are wanderers in the universe. What you see now is the true appearance of the Skrulls. Of course, you can be more familiar with their other appearance. As soon as his voice fell, the picture on the screen changed, showing the previous action that led to the death of innocent people. In the picture, there was Hulk who was more than 2 meters tall, Tony who was wearing an Iron Man suit, Rogers who was holding a shield, and Barton who was shooting arrows. Basically, in front of everyone, there was a picture of their actions. Everyone in the Avengers saw their figure in the picture. On Konoha's side, only Abomination, Red Tank, Daisy, Pietro, and Moonlight Stone, who often act outside, had pictures of their actions. Being reminded by Rog to this extent, even if the people in the room were stupid, they understood what was going on. What happened in the past 6 months was the doing of these Skrulls. As for the purpose, on one hand, it was to make the people and the government hate you, and on the other hand, it was to invade the Earth. Rog glanced at the expression of the people in the room and continued. Invade the Earth? After hearing this word, Tawny, Rogers, and the others, who are more familiar with the government's operations, immediately thought of something. You mean, they are not just imitating us? Rogers took the lead and asked. In fact, I prefer to use the word transformation to describe their ability. The Skrull race is a natural spy race. Their racial talent allows them to transform into anyone's appearance. Having said that, Rog paused for a few seconds, and then said in a serious tone, you guessed right, they are also in some of the government agencies. Maybe the recent report against the Avengers and Konoha was written by them. After Rog finished, even Venom and Dr. Connors, who didn't have much contact with the government, realized the seriousness of the matter for the first time. Since you already know who they are, then you should also have a way to distinguish them, right? Tawny asked with a frown. I can distinguish them, but this is my personal ability. As far as I know, there is no instrument that can directly distinguish the Skrulls in the state of transformation. Of course, if you can invent one, that would be even better. Rog was telling the truth, because even the Carey Empire, which destroyed the Skrulls' mother planet, has not invented an instrument that can reveal the Skrulls' true form. In this regard, the only thing that could be counted on was Tony's brain, which had been turned on a cheat. Tawny can even create a space-time tracking device, and inventing an instrument that can see through the transformation of the Skrulls shouldn't be too much of a problem for him. Does this race have any shortcomings? Tawny didn't immediately answer Rog, but Natasha, who was sitting in the third seat on the right, raised her own question. Of course. Although the transformation ability of the Skrulls is very powerful, it can even be considered perfect. But their individual strength is not strong. If it is an ordinary Skrull, everyone here has the strength to defeat them. But the premise is that you can distinguish them, and you only met an ordinary scroll. Rog emphasized the word ordinary. Ordinary? Then what if it is not ordinary? Natasha cooperated and asked again. This is the reason why the Restoration Alliance is cooperating with Konoha this time. Ordinary scrolls can only change their appearance, the more powerful ones can also copy short-term memories, but these aren't too big of a problem. The real problem is the Super Scroll. When Rog mentioned the Super Scroll, the holographic screen in front of everyone changed again. The Super Scroll and ordinary scrolls have no difference in appearance, but the Super Scroll can not only transform and copy memories, but also copy the ability of their target. For example, if a Super Scroll turns into Hulk's appearance, then it is very likely that he has the same strength as Hulk. Although the ability copied by the Super Scroll is a counterfeit, it won't be too different from the original. When Rog finished speaking, the conference room suddenly fell into a dead silence. Chapter 406. A group of fake Hulks that aren't much weaker than Hulk. Even if there are only 10 of these fake Hulks, as long as there are 2 or 3 of them, it would be enough to cause an unimaginable disaster. Thinking of this, the faces of Tawny and the others became more and more ugly. You don't have to be so pessimistic. There won't be many of these Super Scrolls, otherwise, they wouldn't have avoided direct confrontation with you. Rog glanced at Tawny and the others and continued. According to the records of the Carey Empire, the proportion of Super Scrolls in the entire Skrull race isn't very high. It's about 1 in a few hundred ordinary Skrulls. So in general, they don't need to worry too much about these Super Scrolls. I hope so. Tawny replied weakly. The current situation is bad enough. If these Super Scrolls that can replicate abilities are added, the situation will only develop in a worse direction. Anyway, thank you for bringing back this information, at least let us know who the enemy is. After sorting out his somewhat depressed mood, Tawny thanked Rog. You don't have to be so polite. Although the philosophy of the Restoration Alliance and Konoha is not the same, at this time, we are allies on the same front. Rog replied with a smile. In the following time, Rog and Tawny discussed the sharing of the Restoration Alliance and Konoha's intelligence network, and shared the information they have obtained with each other. After discussing the general details of the cooperation, Tawny returned to the Restoration Alliance headquarters with the Americans. However, when they returned to the Restoration Alliance headquarters, Rog left Dr. Banner, or more accurately, Hulk behind. Until a living Skrull is captured, or until Tawny develops a device to identify Skrulls, Konoha and the Restoration Alliance can only continue to endure the Skrulls' behavior of throwing blame at them. Knowing the existence of the Skrulls doesn't mean that they can immediately reverse the current situation. They still have a lot of preparation to do if they want to truly stop the Skrulls' secret invasion. While Hinata assigned tasks to Daisy, Walter, and the others, Rog took Hulk to his private training room. Do you remember what I told you last time? After coming to the training room the size of a football field, Rog looked up and said to Hulk. Yes. You said you wanted to teach Hulk the Hashman Tanku. Hulk certainly wouldn't forget the words that Log had said to him. As he spoke, he excitedly gestured to Log to use the 8 inner hidden gates. Looking at the excited Hulk, Rog took a few steps back and said, Hinata, project Hulk's version of the Hashman Tanku. As soon as his voice fell, a holographic display screen of Hulk's size appeared in front of Hulk. Hulk, STSS, SSSSS, SSSSSSSSS2, SSS to you. Rog explained to Hulk, then raised his right hand and wrapped his chakras around his hand. Although S is different, S power won't be too different. More importantly, as long as you can open the 3rd gate of life, you can also emit green light. To be honest, even now, Rog didn't know whether it was because Hulk liked the 8 inner hidden gates because it was powerful enough, or because after opening the 3rd gate, it would emit a green light, so he was interested in the 8 inner hidden gates. But no matter what the reason is, as long as Hulk is interested in Hashman Tanku, it's fine. Because he's also very curious about how powerful Hashman Tankus can be after Hulk's. Good. Hulk answered excitedly. Here are only the first 5 S. After you've thoroughly mastered these 5, I'll teach you the other 3. Although Rog has all the Hashmantanku's cultivation methods, he himself has only practiced the sixth. So before he fully masters Hashmantanku, it's impossible for him to modify Hashmantanku's to a suitable version based on his own experience. Even if Hinata carries out a massive amount of data simulation, it won't work. I'll work hard to learn the first 5. Hulk said solemnly to Rog. Then you should first memorize the Hashmantanku's cultivation methods. Your physical condition has fully met the Hashmantanku standards, so mastering the first 3 shouldn't be difficult for you. After leaving Hulk alone in the training room to memorize Hashmantanku's, Rog told Hinata to pay attention to Hulk's situation at all times, lest Hulk destroy his training room in a fit of excitement. After that, he returned to his office and dialed Secretary of State Ross' phone number. He didn't say too much to Ross, just simply told him that he's back, and then hung up the phone. Then, he summoned the Yondaime Hokage's Haori from the summon scroll, which he hasn't worn for a long time, as well as the Thunder Fan and the Kusanagi sword. The Yondaime Hokage hasn't appeared in front of people for a long time, and now it's time for a high-profile return ceremony. After putting on the Haori's Haori, and wearing the Thunder Fan and the Kusanagi sword, Kuroto pushed open the huge window of the office and flew out using the super light rock technique. In a few seconds, he flew over the gate of Konoha's intelligence agency, overlooking the protesters below. Since the establishment of Konoha's intelligence agency, the most intuitive evaluation of Konoha's is. But now, the protesters below seem to have completely forgotten Konoha's domineering style. Just as Rog, who was floating in the air, looked at the protesters in front of Konoha's headquarters gate, a reporter standing outside the protest crowd moved his sore neck. Then, he saw Rog floating in the air. This person is? At the first sight of Rog, the male reporter couldn't recognize him for a while. Instead, he thought about who in Konoha has the ability to fly. After a few seconds, the male reporter in a black suit suddenly widened his eyes, and looked up at Rog in the air with a look of disbelief. The Yondaime Hokage Rog. In Konoha, only the Yondaime Rog has the ability to fly. After realizing this, the male reporter excitedly patted the cameraman next to him, indicating the cameraman to turn the camera. This is big news. The Yondaime Hokage, who hasn't appeared for a long time, personally appeared at the scene of the protest. This will definitely make tomorrow's headlines. However, the cameraman next to the male reporter didn't have time to turn the camera. Rog, who was floating in the air, hit the ground like a meteor. Rog didn't control his speed, and directly made a superhero's landing. Boom! A huge impact sounded, and the ground under Rog's feet cracked like a spider web. Rog's landing immediately suppressed the protests at the scene. The originally manic protesters, at this time, as if the mute button was pressed, quietly watched Rog landing in front of Konoha's headquarters gate. Rog's white eyes glanced at the suddenly quiet crowd, and then said in a cold tone, "Are you dissatisfied with Konoha?"